Hello, you are very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. I'm Shane, that's Daragh.
Hello.
Two brothers discussing all things rugby through the lens of Leinster and Ireland. And welcome back for those returning. It is our 110. As promised, we will return with the international footy to break all of that down and get sunk into these autumn internationals, as they're known up at in this hemisphere. Spring tours for all the Southern Hemisphere giants. And we're getting excited. We've already had a few curtain raisers that we'll look back on as well, but some good games to come in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be with you for the whole international window through the whole tour, and we're going to be looking at a lot of test matches. There's some really fun games coming up. Obviously this week we've got Wales and the All Blacks and Scotland Tonga as well. But we also have, in the weeks to come, some brilliant games. I think every one of Scotland's games is a great game. I think it'll be fun to see Australia taking on the Wales, Scotland and England. Yeah. South Africa next week, as early as next week, playing Wales. Our own interests, Ireland taking on the All Blacks in the coming weeks. So many fun games to get into, and fun Tier 2 games as well, as finally it seems that since the pandemic, for the first time, we're actually coming together really and having some of these sides play each other from across the world. So it's definitely going to be a fun few weeks. We're going to be with you through it all. And this week, though, we are going to keep it pretty, timely, time sensitive, into the here and now is right. And so we're going to look back on last week's games. There was an excellent game between Japan and Australia we'll dig into. A not so excellent game between the US and the All Blacks we'll dig into, as well as the two games this week between Scotland, Tonga and, of course, Wales and the All Blacks.
Absolutely, yes. And we will then touch up on the Rugby World Cup qualifiers. I know when we last left you, we were previewing the big kind of America's 1 and America's 2 race. We'll touch on the victors there. Both South American sides coming out on top in both of those contests. And we're also going to look ahead this week. I think Spain are preparing their run with a game against Italy A as well. That's happening this weekend. And as well as that, we're also going to look at women's rugby, which there are a couple of good games this weekend. We have England women against the Black Ferns, New Zealand. That's going to be box office. They're two contenders for the World Cup next year and kind of could be a dry run for the final. But also in the Americas, we have the US and the Canadian women who will be putting on a better display of rugby than their male counterparts, I dare say, and they are also well in the mix for that World Cup, which rolls on next year as well.
Yeah, 100%. We're also going to touch on the the Americas Rugby Pacific Challenge this year, which is an All-Americas event. We're going to touch on that briefly, as well as looking at all the club footy that's been going on over the last few weeks in Europe, the URC, Top Couture's Premiership, Rugby Europe Super Cup, and then we're going to wrap up the show, as we always do, with all of the rugby news of the week. And be sure as well, if you enjoy the show, to give us a like. I think that helps us significantly in the old algorithms and whatever.
Yes, the mysterious ways of the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah,
likes,
exactly.
Subscribes
are good.
Comments, all good.
Comments are what we really care about as well. If you have any thoughts, any opinions, put them down in the comments below, and we'll do our best to respond to you. Yeah. All right. Without any more ado, we're going to move on and look at the reason why we're here, back in action, the autumn internationals.
Yes, indeed. Exciting times. This I always love this time of year, because it's just like, it's very often it's the time that kind of rugby brains switch back, or like we're the rugby nerds in the kind of mire of it, but like the general kind of populace starts becoming aware of rugby more broadly, and you see it kind of decorating the towns. And we're going to have crowds this time. It's not going to be like the Autumn Nations Cup last year as well, so kind of exciting to see these some of these sides go at it again. Yeah,
100%. There's so many fun games, as we mentioned at the top of the show. Just the two this weekend, but in the weeks to come, I mean, you're going to have weekends with 6-7 great games. There's some good Tier 2 clashes. I'm really interested to see Italy and Uruguay in a dry run for their World Cup match after Uruguay just qualified for the World Cup. There's also just a smorgasbord of great Rugby Championship versus Six Nations games, and I think we're going to learn a lot about all teams involved after this one. It feels like usually the Rugby Championship teams are coming in on a bit of a low ebb after a long season, but it feels like this year they're pretty primed, and actually, if anything, the European sides might be a little undercooked. So I think we're going to be in for some really, really good games. And as you say, the crowds, I mean, it was good in the Rugby Championship to get some crowds in Australia.
True.
But the European sides are going to take it to another level. We're going to have proper class test match atmospheres.
Well, we'll hear that Welsh anthem as they prepare to face the All Blacks. Then the big hack in. Well, that's up this weekend. But then beyond that, the pageantry that surrounds test match footy is definitely like no more is it evident than when these kind of spring tours, as the big Southern Hemisphere sides would call them, come up north to try and conquer places like Twickenham and Dublin and all of these mighty fortresses in the international game as well. So yeah, lots to get sunk into as well. But we did also have some kind of curtain raisers this week. The weekend just gone. We were toying with the idea of coming back to preview some of these games in the weekend just gone, but we're kind of glad we left it, because we're just going to look back on them now, and we're going to start with the main one, which was Japan 22, Wallabies 33, in a game that was just a pleasure to watch.
The other way around, it was 23-32.
Oh, was it? Sorry, I got that backwards.
But it was a banging game between two very good sides. I really did enjoy it. It was played in good spirits. The Wallabies did take the win. They did deserve the win.
Yes.
But Japan gave as good as they got. It was kind of a punch, give and take punches kind of game.
Yeah.
I think Quade Cooper's performance was possibly the most entertaining aspect of it. I mean, he was kind of everywhere, involved in everything. It was the most Quade Cooper performance that we've had since Quade Cooper came
the renaissance
back.
of Quade.
He was in the line. I mean, that opening score that they got after an initial period where Japan's defense, which was good all day long, really patient, never lost it. Lost its shape. Were great for a jackal steal when it was on.
Yeah.
Soaked a lot of pressure without conceding. And then the Wallabies on a counterpunch just launched off a dominant scrum, which was so key and great for Quade to get a set piece that was just owning the Japanese, which was probably the difference in the end.
Yeah.
But it was just this crazy set in the build up to that opening try, where Quade took the ball 3 or 4 times. It was Tom Wright's score, and he had a pass, but he played the more fancy pass. And that was kind of what he was doing all day long. I mean, he got to the edge, and there was a 2-man overlap, and then he flicked an inside ball to Valentini, who still made magic happen because he was running a sharp line and had an awesome game himself.
Yeah.
And then the next time Quade cuts through the line, and he could have just slipped a simple ball to Tupou, who likely would have gone in himself, but instead he threw one over the top, which was still caught, and they played on, and eventually pulls off a gem of a play to slip in Tom Wright for that score.
That was beautiful.
But he ran that drive really well, and it was entirely different to what was going on when they were playing the Springboks, and it was all Karevi led. He was coming in behind, but he was coming in at beautiful angles, folding around the corner, driving the pace of that offense and taking contacts. He felt a lot more confident going to the line and then making something happen.
Yeah, well, as you were hinting to, that dominance at set piece kind of allowed them to feel confident flinging it wide sooner, whereas against that Springbok D, where you're kind of getting parity sometimes in set piece, you need a Karevi to sit down that line before any purchase is made outside. But in this game, both sides were keen to attack when they had the chance to, and Japan, despite being a little bit dominated in the tighter exchanges, they were really, really plucky throughout in terms of just not going anywhere. They were staying in it, and it was like even on the 60-minute mark when they were bringing it back, like with a pick that was, as you were saying, kind of coming all day from the Quade scenario. Like he was throwing really lovely, sexy passes, but eventually the Japanese kind of got wise.
He was just throwing them on the margins, and he was doing that all day. But they were looking to attack, and I think Quade probably, if he reflected on the game, would think like veteran stuff. Let's just be a little more sensible than just flinging the ball left and right. It was a lovely read from Nakamura. But no, the Japanese were worth their place in that game. They stuttered the Wallabies at times. Their defence held up really well in the main. And it took some stellar offensive work from the Wallabies to break them down. I mean, each try that they scored was a real diamond.
True.
I think of the one with Akitau just sliding down the corner and then slipping the ball inside.
They all have such great instincts in such a young team. They really do love to attack. And a lot of them do play in Japan and stuff as well. So the track was no stranger to them, and the Japanese ethos of the game was no stranger. No, I was looking at it going like, there's no bad guys in this game. It was like watching two protagonists go head to head. I didn't know who to root for or who to root against. I was just kind of hoping for a really good rugby, and it delivered on that. And then the right team won, which is a credit to the Wallabies. They themselves, in their reflection of the game, were saying they were a little inaccurate and this and that, but I think they probably weren't giving a fair shake to what Japan were bringing for that. I think they were actually impressive in their accuracy to grab the scores they did to secure the win. They still scored 33 points.
I was very impressed.
32 points.
I was they were probably, it wasn't as physical a game as when they were taking on the Springboks, and they did lack that Karevi punch in the midfield.
Sure.
And Valentini was looking
and like Corabetti, actually as well.
Valentini,
their special K factor as they branded it.
Valentini has been just going from strength to strength, and he was very dominant in the collisions. I remember sort of Jack Conan doing a similar thing for Ireland, just brushing aside the Japanese. But I'm just thinking back this season. I mean, he was one of their best players against the All Blacks. He was tremendous against the Springboks.
We were questioning going in. It's like, oh, he's untested. These are going to be big.
Is he going to be one of these guys like Billy Vunipola who rocks up to play the Springboks, is used to dominating contacts and gets smashed back? But no, he was doing the smashing.
Yeah.
And he's gone on, and he was one of the best players on the pitch, if not the best, there the other day as well.
Truly.
So I definitely, big fan of what the Wallabies are doing, and I definitely their unknown strength or their unsung strength is their set piece. Their set piece is excellent.
Well, Tupou is going to be an asset that changes any set piece.
The line out was smart as well. Like, it struggled in moments. They had a few overthrows. Falaufaanga's not the best thrower of the ball.
Philip was a good disruptive force on the defensive line out as well.
They disrupted more than Japan did, and they ended up scoring a couple of tries off it. The Tupou try was just really smart. I mean, I think it goes through through about 5 sets of hands in 2 seconds
to set him up.
Yeah,
down the 1v1 with a hooker, which is just like a mismatch, you know.
It was brilliant stuff. It really was, and well taken by Tupou, who could have got man of the match himself, even for his
very,
state.
very good.
As soon as Alatoa came on, Japan actually managed to get
a few scrum pens. That's right. Yeah, no,
but
he's unbelievable. He has put his hand up as the best tight head in the world at the minute, and it's tough to argue. There are a few other ones who would stake a claim as well, but he is definitely one of them, and it's completely changing what Wallaby rugby was about for the last few years to what it can be about, what it is about this year, and can be about going into the next World Cup. They like to strike off set piece. They run very pretty patterns off a dominant set piece, better than some other tier 1 sides who manage to make their game all about scrums and don't have anything off the back of it. Wallabies are a different force from that, so if they can get all the pieces gelling, we're starting to see that they did their there was an away game as well, so they've kind of cemented their place in third in the world just before they come up north. Obviously things will change now over the course of the coming weeks as more games are played, but right now they look good value for third in the world in terms of just the way they're playing this year. The 2021 vintage of the Wallabies looks very, very good,
and it getting stronger as the weeks go on as well. They've added new layers to their squad. They brought on JOC in this game.
They did.
They're very, very much a successful season no matter what happens, but I would expect them to have a strong Northern tour on the evidence of this game, and from Japan's point of view, to hang with them. They played a very good game. They're not quite the same team that they were.
They were. Tamura came off the bench at fullback actually, rather than I think it was your man. The name escapes me now.
Matsuda was starting at 10.
He won the top league this year and was place kicking very well. It is a slightly
he had an absolute clanger of a kick in this game. One of his missed kicks was just
that was an absolute spike horrid contact which can happen.
But they played a smart game, but they're not quite as explosive as they once were. They're still all offense and razzle dazzle, and Lafayette and Nakamura is showing no signs of slowing down as a partnership,
as gelled as some of these other partnerships that you talk about. Like it's a tier 1 centre partnership there, and it could be for the next few years.
Very very smart footballers, but they're not quite the same. They move at a sharp speed, but they're a little more patient. Like that first try that they scored is probably an example of what they're doing. It came off after the Wallaby try. They had a restart, and Rodda actually dropped it, and they scored in that set, but it was after about 14 or 15 phases where they were just keeping the pace of the game high, resourcing the ruck very well, minding the ball very well, which in the middle period of the game they didn't do, and it's something they're going to have to focus on. But they minded the ball, they probed, they worked on they worked outside to the left extreme, they worked back to the centre of the field, they went back out left again, kept probing, kept picking sharp lines, minding the ball, helping each other out, not giving the Wallabies an in to steal the ball until they found a bit of space where there was on the right edge, and then just a smart little kick, I think it was from Matsuda, in behind for
I kind of liked the balance of what they were doing in the back row and through the 9-10 channels as well. The big noticeable difference, obviously Matsushita wasn't available this week. He's in top Couture's doing Matsushima, sorry. But they are missing just the back 3 pace that they brought to the World Cup last time out, which has just had the knock-on effect of changing the way they play. Like they've probably the first 2 or 3 phases you were talking about there, they did what they would have done at the World Cup and just flashed it right, but it would have been a try there because the winger would have just gone. So it actually ended up taking 19 more stubborn
but
phases
it was
of accuracy to do it.
In the middle period of the game, they got a little lax on the ball.
Yeah.
But they made up for that with some patient defending, and Jimeno, again, is just an absolute warrior in there. Labuschagne.
Labuschagne was everywhere,
Yeah.
actually. He was very physical out there as well. He was causing Wallabies problems from in the contact area a lot of the time and stymieing a lot of their attacks with just good tackles very often, and then in for a jackal as well. Yeah, no, they're impressive in terms of what they're learning from, like, certainly, like, when you reflect on all teams will take from the World Cup where they ultimately exited from it, and how they can improve on it, and the kind of 50-metre maul stuff from the Springboks, and some of the savvy they didn't display against what ended up being the world champion team. Like, you can take it with a pinch of salt, but they seem to have taken some good strides to address some of those issues.
At the tail, they did end up conceding two tries off the line out. One from maul.
It's still never going to be their top flight strength, but they can't. What they're resolving is to not allow it to be like World Cup quarterfinal 50 metres maul concession. They're probably going to sack that now. I think if that happens tomorrow, they probably sack that maul maybe 20 yards sooner.
I would hope so. But yeah, they're getting there, but I don't know. I'm a little worried for them just in the absolute physicality, because the Wallabies weren't. It was noticeable they weren't as physical, and their guys who were like Valentini were having a field day in the contact area, and they weren't able to. They're still not the kind of team that can hurt a guy like Quade Cooper.
Yes, yeah.
A veteran 10.
That's why Quade Cooper was having so much fun out there. Yeah. It's probably that he didn't really feel a risk of any kind of shot.
He was in the kind of mood where if you nailed him with a few hits, you might have got I know they got one pick out of him, but you might have got a few more loose plays out of him. But as it was, he was just playing with supreme confidence, taking it to the line. And Japan aren't yet mean enough to stop teams from doing that, and they really do want to go in a shootout. True. And at the moment, they are losing a lot of these shootouts. I mean, it's very early days in their Tier 1. They're up against quality teams. It's not going to be something to panic about.
That's true.
They're
but
delighted
if you
that
want to put that super critical hat on, then it is like if you were to put Japan as just Ireland, how would we feel as Ireland fans if Australia rocked up to town and we lost by more than a score? We'd be annoyed. Like, it wouldn't be a good result. So from Japan's point of view, that's what they're striving towards. So becoming everyone's favourite team to play against because you score a load of pretty tries and they score pretty tries, and the results is still a victory to their opponents. That's not ideal for them, obviously, but I'm going to cut them some of that slack. It was basically their first game in a long while against top flight opposition.
Yeah, I mean, they did have the game against Ireland in the summer, they will play them again next week, and it'll be another good test for them. They still have a lot of quality. I think, like, certainly on the evidence of this game, and I'd be comfortable looking at the structures that are in place there, the coaching staff. I don't see any reason to delay putting them in the Rugby Championship. Argentina were in there this year, and Argentina were less value for their six games
that game
than
was,
Japan were
that
in
game
this game.
was much more competitive, even though it didn't really, like, they got it back to a score within 20 minutes to go, but I wasn't believing that Japan were going to win it, and it didn't look that way, and it ended up playing out that way. And that's, like, obviously there's a difference between a competitive game and then a game that's actually in the balance, but this was a competitive game. The Argentinian games, all six of them were not competitive,
and Argentina have been and will be again better than they were this year. But there's no reason why you should delay getting Japan involved. I think
they'll add value. They'll add monetary value as well as just rugby value. They're great to watch.
Yeah, there's the logistics of putting together a 5-team tournament. Like, are we going to just play 4 games? Are we going to play as many as 8 games? Like, they're going to have to figure all that out. But it seems inevitable to me that Japan are involved in this competition, and I think that's a good thing.
I think so too.
I think listen, like, the Tri-Nations and the Rugby Championship have their fascinations, but long term we should be looking to move towards a kind of a Six Nations format in either hemisphere, and maybe even long term a Fiji or someone like that getting involved wouldn't be the worst thing. They'd probably be better value than Italy in the Six Nations now. You know,
yeah, so just in terms of watchability.
Yeah, it would be tremendously tough for a team like Fiji to go up against all of these giants, but I still think,
especially when the French won't give them their players or whatever.
On test windows they should probably allowed. But it was a great game in Japan in a great place, and I'd be very, very comfortable seeing them get a move on and doing it, and I think they should. Like, what are we waiting for here? You said you would. Let's go. They're a Tier 1 team. Get them in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And as far as Japan's concerned, no need to rock the boat about this. They have some games coming up this window now, but I think pretty much the coaching ticket I'm looking at, and largely the group of heads that we have with a few guys to come back from European duty, they look pretty much on track to go to the next World Cup themselves in terms of how the plan's going. They'll want to improve a little bit, and getting them into the Rugby Championship would help them enormously in that regard, but I think they'll be up there to compete again at the next World Cup without a doubt.
Without a doubt, for sure. And we are going to park that game there.
Well, one last bit of tidbit on it was just the news about you were mentioning Quade Cooper throughout. Obviously, burying the lead on that. He's now out of the rest of the European tour before they headed off north. He's based in Japan, like Karevi, like Korobetti, and he had similar kind of ongoing negotiations with the clubs and with the things like he did want to play. He expressed kind of real regret, but ultimately he's going to stay in the Southern Hemisphere, and Lolosio I think has joined the touring party to come north.
That's
again.
right, Samu Karevi and Sean McMahon have gone the same way, based in Japan.
Yes.
Probably a little black mark against those Japanese clubs demanding they don't play the northern games so that they can do a pre-season.
Yeah, that is a bit beyond the pale. Like we throw enough backhanded shade at the top tours that we should probably throw some shade at the top league now that they're in with the big boys.
Don't be doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rugby Australia are reportedly fuming about this. I mean, like, if they don't pull out all the stops to make sure that the likes of Karevi and Korobetti can keep playing for the Wallabies, they're being very, very silly. And to be honest with you, they're a little all bark and no bite when it comes to giving out about players leaving. I mean, they give out steam and say you've ruined your Wallaby career forever, and then World Cup drops around.
And in other news, actually, Curtly Peel I think was also called in from the Racing squad as well. So Rhys Hodges is out. He injured himself in that Japan game. Rhys Hodge, so he's actually unfortunately out for the tour. So Curtly Beale is going to be another guy dropped in from space who has all the skills, but and a bit like Quaid, you're kind of like, is he still there? And it's still as good as Quaid has done. It's still a question mark with Beale because the last time I saw him, he was just a little like he's playing French club rugby and was hence just a little more dialed out. And when he's dialed out, he's not very good. When he's dialed in, he's exceptional. Then we saw raggedy Franz Stein in Montpellier rock up and give away red cards in the RDS and look a completely beaten man, and it's like he's retiring in 2 months' time, and then he rocks up to play a Lions tour and he's kicking great things.
It's not inconceivable that Beale does a
maybe he cares about you could care about the Wallabies much more than you care about the Parisian paycheck.
They have no Karevi for this tour, so he could walk into the 12 jersey and light it up and then stay there. It could happen.
It's true,
or they could stymie and the systems could not work and Beale could be loose and they could be beaten, but it remains to be seen. It's still exciting times for the Wallabies. It's a little perhaps disappointing, but I think they got what they needed from Quaid this year.
Yes, I don't like if you want to wrap him in cotton wool, he could be he's a World Cup.
You want to see JOC at 10 in this offense. You haven't seen it that much in this year. You also don't want to freeze out Noah Lolosio, so I think it's a good thing that he's going with them. He is still
actually, as far as minutes are concerned, I think it was another YouTuber, might have been the 1014. We're doing that kind of form chart in terms of teams and their minutes to all the players in their squad. How that form guide goes into the World Cup. The Wallabies have done that great stead, because like it was Lolosio's big moment when they were beating France at the beginning of the season and all of that, and then he was frozen out for the Rugby Championship where Quaid was coming back, and now JOC is kind of coming back to the party late in the year. It's going to be a good rotation of 10s, which, like, certainly speaking from an Ireland perspective, I'm looking at our 10 stocks thinking I would take any of those boys at the minute to join our ranks. You're
not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah, listen, a great win for the Wallabies, and we'll be keeping an eye on both of these teams in the weeks to come as they all progress on their northern tours. But there was another game last weekend in FedEx Field, the home of the Washington football team.
Yes, the Washington W's.
Washington W's hosted a decent sized crowd in Washington D.C. as the All Blacks came to town to take on the USA Eagles. And it was an ugly one. It was.
I don't know that the US managed to beat the spread on this one. I don't imagine that they did.
Pessimistic bookmaker.
The
US smashed the spread, whatever it was, won at 104 to 14 points, topped 100 for the second time
in a season they've done it. So it's not an anomaly. And Tonga are probably the happiest ones about this result. It was pretty evident from early on. Like the US, they did great. Like the Wainui tribute was nice and the kind of pageantry there, but then when it kept cutting to your man there, Guy Smiley responding to the haka, you're just looking at this going, oh no.
You're not wrong.
My little question was like, are the All Blacks going to even kind of pretend they're in a game here? Are they going to set up a box? Oh no, we're going. Oh, and it's a try.
They just went from deep every time.
They knew that they had nothing.
There was just no defensive resistance. They caught the US completely with their pants down. Listen, from an All Black point of view, this was a very, very successful outing.
Surely, yes.
Like it was,
Jordan hat tricks. That's all nice. Damien McKenzie winning over the home crowd with all his
more than
lovely,
that. It was,
sexy passing.
yeah, exactly. It was a pageantry thing. It was going out to the States and just reminding them what brand All Blacks is. I mean, in the US, for people who wouldn't have even known rugby, if they're into sport, there's a good chance they wouldn't know the All Blacks. The All Blacks is perhaps the most well-known thing about rugby to the casual person. It's like, oh, the All Blacks, they're that amazing team.
Yeah, most successful sports franchise in the history of the world, I believe. It's the answer to that trivia question.
I wouldn't call them a franchise, but
I
suppose they probably are.
In American parlance, they are.
But they're obviously one of the most famous teams in sport. Yeah. And to go over there and just sort of, we get a chance to see the All Blacks play, and then for them to deliver on their mythology so
emphatically.
It's just like, oh my god,
down to the every play aside. At one point I skipped through because I think I skipped through too quick, and there's Mo'unga doing a line. I was like, oh no, back, that was another try. It was crazy.
I watched it live, and it was tragic and hilarious and brilliant at the same time. I mean, I thought Mackenzie, who you mentioned, was excellent. Like he was getting the crowd to draw breath.
He has the same thing when the Chiefs crowd love him from all but back when. It's like it's that sensation. Chesson Colby gets the same love. It's like, look at that little man. Oh, he broke the big man's ankles again.
He was spectacular. Mo'unga as well, footwork. But the US crowd was gasping at the brilliance of it. Yeah. It was the right way to win 104 to 14 in that sense, because they moved the ball so well. Yeah. They scored some absolutely lovely tries. And let's be real, they were dialed in. They made so few errors. Literally none in the first half. Yeah. Just try.
55?
59
7 at half time. You never see the like normally when you're beating the minutes clock, that's a very good showing in a half of rugby. If you can get 40 up
as far as 60 before the half, near enough.
Crazy stuff. But they chose the path of least resistance, which as it turns out was just straight through and around and over, and any old which way they wanted to. They could score any old try, as it turned out. As you said, they made no errors, and it's not a scoreline that any other team in world rugby would replicate. But it does speak to their emphatic quality and the dialed out nature of their opposition in that, which was unfortunate.
It was good from their point of view just to get some minutes into the likes of Finlay Christie, who played very well.
Really good, because the last time he'd been in the All Black jersey, he actually had a pretty poor showing. I can't remember who he was playing, but he showed up, and it was... it wasn't great when you with your rare chance, and up again when you have such depth. Like Aaron Smith is sitting on the bench for this year, and you still have Webbers and Perinaras in your path, and so all of these guys can ill afford a poor showing even against the US, and that was what was revealed there. Tupaia was excellent as well.
Braden Enor, I thought hasn't had any time.
All of these guys who have no minutes. Sure, we see it even at club level for Leinster sometimes. Like it's sometimes in those like lower level games, it's the guy who's not played in weeks and doesn't know when his next start's going to come that ends up lighting it up. Correct, and that was the same here. They were just so keen to get the whole back row were just having way too much
Jacobson
fun.
In particular,
way too much fun. They all grabbed tries. Dalton Papali'i was just like monstrous throughout. They were all having way too much fun out there. It was fun to watch when you put your All Black lens on. It is great to watch them in flow.
And a quality showing from their brand point of view. From the other side of the coin, the US Eagles, obviously there's been a lot of talk dug into it, and we will have the sort of the macro conversation about tier 1 and tier 2, but I actually think first and foremost, if you're an Eagles fan, there's a more immediate problem going on here, which is that this team right now, like, it isn't nearly as good even as it should be. No, it's not a good team. It's a bad team, even for the standard that they're playing at. They're doing. I mean, I was kind of on the fence.
It was typified by Uruguay ripping them apart a few weeks ago, deservedly.
And the week before that, they did win that game against Uruguay, and they are in moments very good. They can be physical. They are pros, but there's a lot wrong with this team. There's a problem seemingly from the outside with the ethos. Like you touched on it at the start, the laughing at the haka, but just. To be, I mean, the laughing in the haka is one of many things. Maybe like you're a little nervous. You probably just don't know how to act. It's a big occasion. But it was just symptomatic, and then everything that followed of the fact that they just weren't at all mentally dialed in to what the task
what
that
was
about
to arrive. Like when you think of how primed and pumped an Ireland team would be for the All Blacks coming to town, all of the locker room chat that'll go into Wales, I'm sure this weekend will be thinking like, right boys, we know we're in for it. They scored 100 last week.
Yeah, like, exactly. It's going to be you have to be at your ferocious pitch just to hang with these guys. And listen, at the World Cup, like Namibia, I think led 9-0 or something, or they scored 9 points in the opening 30 minutes. It's not impossible to hang with them for a period. The US didn't show any of that.
No.
Like, they are a bit of a slow team. They're also just incredibly streaky, incredibly moody. Sometimes when they're good, they're really good and they start to put things together, and then they're just so slow to react when things go against them.
Momentum hits this team like a shovel. It just buries them. Like it happens very early in the game, and then they are seemingly powerless to kind of wrestle it. Cam Dolan was one who you are a big fan of, who was trying. God love him, he was trying. At one point he got stopped by 2 men and did a little and the next guy got rocked anyway in the contact. It didn't matter, but he was at least hustling.
He's a solid player, Cam Dolan. I think he could probably hang at URC level. Sure. I don't think he's going to be taken on the All Blacks to any great degree, and that is the broader conversation with the athletes themselves. But for the team itself is just, it seems like a basket case. I don't really know what they want to be. They kind of wanted to be a strong set piece team. That stalled a little bit this year. What they sometimes they want to move the ball with a bit of purpose. They're changing their 10s every week. They don't know if they want to just play from the middle third or just kick and defend. And yet for a team that plays so slow, their defense doesn't have any energy, so they're easy to pick apart if your offense is dialed in.
True.
The defense especially was shocking.
Yeah, it was
shockingly bad.
Awful.
Just the quality of tackle, but also just the shape, the movement. Like, it was. There's no way that the All Blacks should be able to run it from their 22 like 3 times in a row against anybody.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a case where they were like, it's one thing if you're well spread and then the All Blacks punch a sharp hole and get it off away.
For the most part, they were just getting it in
first
a few
phase
phases wide time. And then give it to DMAC with a little bit of space, and then they'll just carve through.
Exactly. But there was no energy off the line. There was no telegraphing of the play. There were missed tackles galore. There was no communication. Like, they just look a basket case at the moment.
And I think broadly as well, I think they're just getting it dead wrong. Like, even when I was watching them play Canada in that little playoff game series a while ago, and I was listening to the Canadian commentators in the game that Canada won, talking about traditionally they're a forward oriented physical team and Canada will be the quicker team and all this, and I'm just thinking, like, why is that the tradition? Why are they burying themselves that way? Because we've seen, like, one of my adages that I bang on ad nauseum during the Six Nations when I'm talking about Italy taking on all these teams is, like, just kick to the corner. You'll have like maybe 5 chances all game. They all need to be converted tries for you to have any chance. So just go for them. Yeah. And like if you're a bad team, you're much better off. If you're a tier 2 team facing a tier 1 team, you're much better off just going for it while you have the energy, because come 60 minutes you'll be gassed and they'll be running tries around you. And the US have kind of set themselves up to be the bullies of tier 2, but they're not as good at it as Georgia. Georgia are the real bullies of tier 2, and they can hang with the top level physicality. They just suffer for some of the other strings to their bow. I just look at the US Sevens, which is a successful rugby franchise from the US, and I'm looking at all the sprinters that they have out there, all these amazing basketball athletes. Like, I'd love if their centres had some basketballing acumen to them, and they would want to be attackingly, like, have a little bit of attack for the like numb defence that they were offering yesterday. Like, you're picking these hard men and physical lumps out in the centre with the idea that they're better at making tackles, but not if they're allowing Mackenzie and the like to just run around them.
No,
and it's
exactly.
Just want to see more ball skills and more speed. They have no emphasis on speed, and they've annoyed me for quite a while looking at it, because like the broad context, and I know World Rugby and Beaumont will be fuming looking at like little Uruguay beating the US, because they ultimately want the US to be very, very good at rugby and to be investing very big real monies, and I definitely don't think this is the US Eagles to be doing that.
I was just looking at the stats for the game.
Oh no. Well, this is
just on tackles made 127, tackles missed 56 missed. That's got to break some kind of record. 56 missed tackles in
of
a game.
100 and what?
They made, what do they make? 127. So they miss one in every 3.
Yeah. Well, that was about right. Yeah, because it was happening every phase. That's like it's crazy how they've set themselves up in a way where I just don't think this team will ever kick on from where they are. Like, I like how their attacking maul can dial it in. I like how they can be a bit bullyish at times, but as soon as they're fronted up to, it was evidenced in that game in the World Cup where they played against England, and they were just like, no hope. They have no hope of doing any of it.
When they get fronted up to, they don't bite down on the gum shield and then do something to respond.
No,
that's it. They look good for a bit. When they're dominant, they look
they
pretty good.
A good bullying side,
and they were in moments against Uruguay. They just suffered for not being clinical enough. They were bullying, and they were all over them, and then they weren't, and then that was it.
That's it.
And that is it. I mean,
No,
I'm not one for calling for coaches' heads, especially when I don't know what's going on. But this whole Gary Gold project, despite
it's
some
one
positive
step forward, 2 steps back all the time.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I just think. In terms of the ethos, I would love it to be ripped up and started again. I would either love you just pick the sevens team as your backline with Adge McGinty at 9 or at 10 and try and make stuff happen, or just more basketballers out there. Like there are ballers out there in America, and there are athletes and sprinters on the wings. I just want to see the team be much faster than they are. I would like them to be dominant and physically big, which is what their sevens identity is as well. They have these massive units on a 7 pitch inside, but they have 2 nearly Olympic caliber sprinters on either wing, and I want to see that from their Eagles side as well. I want to see speed in the back channel.
It's not a country. It's not a country short on athletes.
Yeah, so limiting yourself to we're the bludgeoning slow force of tier 2.
Yeah,
no, I don't want to see it.
That's it. From a positive point of view, there are there are decent structures in place. I mean, I saw a lot of people poo-pooing the MLR. This was actually the first US team that was all MLR.
Yeah.
But the fact that pro league is now there is going to be very appealing for US athletes coming out of school.
Yes, and there is a draft, a collegiate draft now.
There's more college programs doing rugby. There's an avenue towards professional rugby for homegrown talent.
Yeah, and it can be a catchment net, which was even something that Eddie O'Sullivan during his tenure with the US ages ago was trying to promote, that there's a load of athletes who grow up through high school and college dreaming of being in the NFL and don't quite make it to the NFL, but they have a lot of skills that are translatable over to a rugby pitch.
And maybe rather than going to some European league to play basketball or Canadian league to play NFL, to play their version of football, maybe you get a few of those athletes, the ones you pick, the ones you think could be good at rugby, to give it a go. And the MLR is a legitimate professional route now for the American talent, which is huge. And then the hard work that has to be done involves a lot of scouting. This is a massive country with endless amounts of quality athletes and endless potential slipping through cracks across loads of sports.
True.
And the hard work that has to be done is getting in, finding these guys on the ground level in colleges and clubs across the country. And I think long term they're actually well set to do that. The MLR is a great introduction.
It's true.
And I think their athletes will be fine. But obviously in the medium term, and particularly in this project under Gary Gold, it's not looking good. And they have a game against Chile coming up for their place in the World Cup.
And
there's no guarantee that they're going to win that game.
No, there's no guarantee. And as much as your Bill Beaumonts and your World Rugbies and possibly a fair few others will be pulling for the US in that one, from what I just putting my rugby loving hat on, I'm I kind of hope Chile stuff you. And you go into the repechage because you deserve to be in the repechage.
I'd say if they go into a repechage and end up in with Romania or Portugal,
they'll probably lose that too, because they don't look as good as any of those teams right now. They really don't. And ultimately long term, I'm in the same camp as World Rugby and Bill Beaumont. I want a strong US force, but not like this. They're not going to contribute anything to the World Cup in the state that they're in.
It's true. It's undeniably true. In the meantime, is making these games between the US and the All Blacks, I suppose,
doesn't serve any purpose other than allowing the All Blacks to rack up 100 points twice in a season. Not particularly. I mean, it lines a few pockets. It gets a nice rugby crowd in Washington.
They want to put a rugby game. They do want to use the NFL stadiums and put rugby games in there,
which I'm all for. And this weekend we would have been trying to take on them at Allegiant Stadium as well, had that not been cancelled. So we miss our chance to try and blow up that Death Star. That would be fun. But I think the better way to do it has been done in our own with Ireland v New Zealand in Chicago, Soldier Field. That's a way to do it. That was a full stadium, and that's a game that American sports fans will enjoy because it was a high-scoring, competitive, high-quality game between two test-level sides. This, Americans don't love blowouts. They if you watch the NFL, they don't do what the All Blacks did. If that was an NFL game, it would have been around 40 points to 14 because they would have just stopped playing for once they reached that blowout
mercy
phase.
Rule in baseball, they definitely they
don't do blowouts.
Score lines like that are alien to them, and they want to see competitive games. So it might make more sense in the future when you're plotting out these November schemes to make maybe a game between, as they have done in the past, an Ireland and the All Blacks or France and the All Blacks, and then put maybe the US on as a curtain raiser
against Tonga as a curtain raiser for that would have been better.
v Romania or whatever, whoever you want to play, but let's try and make it competitive and engage the fans, because I don't know if this one it would have intrigued some people.
Well, it engaged like the fact that it was 100 was what was the intrigue,
and the All Blacks are an intriguing force, a bit like the Harlem Globetrotters, like to go out and watch them. It's just it was definitely exciting, but I think it would have engaged the more to have a competitive fixture in the States as well. And they are looking to host a World Cup in 10 years' time now,
which they definitely have the resources to do so and the money. It would be nice, and I think World Rugby would also be of the opinion that it would be nice if, as a host nation, they have a really good rugby team to bring to that World Cup.
And an audience that, like, the benefit of having it there is that they just have such a diaspora. Like, there's Italians and Irish and Kiwis and everybody.
No issue filling the stadiums.
Exactly, they'll be
the rugby massive stadiums.
The rugby loving nations are well represented there, so that would be a good thing. But they do need to foster some domestic support as well. And one final note on this game as well is just that it was being broadcast in the US on this, I think it's called Flow
Rugby, Flow Rugby, which they have loads of the women's internationals this year as well.
That was being broadcast exclusively to US domestic viewers on a niche sports subscription service that is apparently really expensive and not great functionally. I've read a lot of complaints from people watching it, and that is sort of beyond maddening. Like, in terms of short-sightedness, you needed US eyeballs in this game. Why make this game if you're not going to get US eyeballs in this game? Didn't make a lot of sense to me when the national team is playing. Like the US Eagles, as part of, rather than just cutting the best deal possible to line their pockets, need to be considering growing the game, and it's definitely just so detrimental in the long term to lock your sport behind a paywall. Even
especially if it's a lower fledgling sport.
The Gallagher Premiership, the English Premiership, is broadcast in the States. NBC cover it, and NBC have it on one of their
free to wear
kind of it's not quite free to wear. It's a subscription, but like a TV subscription. So like your whatever we have over here, a Skybox deal or something like that. But it's NBC's version of that, which has all of their sort of The Office and everything else, but also carries these games. So it's essentially on TV or very accessible, and people with interest in rugby can wake up on the weekend
it's much easier to watch Exeter play than it is to watch your own team face the All Blacks.
Exactly.
No, indeed, I take your point. It's a valid criticism. It is not unique to this particular game or the US. Like the South Americans are devils for it as well. It's not forward thinking at all. You'd sooner see them stream it live on Facebook. That's a better idea. Like, they completely invert the approach.
Exactly, 100%. And I'm not just saying that for our own convenience. I'm saying that for everybody's convenience. Because you're competing with so much these days.
You look at these, like, you go into these apps as we do. We're in the weeds. You look at these apps and you're looking at it like, oh, look at this game. Like, nearly 300 concurrent viewers. And you're just like, well, what's the point of that? Like, you have 300 people who've bought in and watched, like, as opposed to just maybe catching a few by sending out more nets.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we've probably talked and dug into the USA Eagles and their problems for a little too long.
Yeah, and it's probably coloured a little negatively. Like, the main takeoff is that the All Blacks scored 100 again, and they looked damn fine doing it. And it was a great show for all concerned, and they're just rolling into Europe now with aplomb, with a bit of momentum. After they did, like, before then, it was their last outing was a loss, which is another thing that fed into the zero mistakes, no mercy, absolute massacre that game was. Like, we've faced that before. Usually when the All Blacks lose a game, the next game out is pretty merciless, even if they're facing the Wallabies or Ireland or England. So the poor USA Eagles.
Certainly the smiling during the Hackett, it wouldn't help either. Like, that definitely cost them a little bit.
That was probably worth at least 30 All Black points right there.
Maybe. Listen, we're going to move on though. That was last week's action. That was a little curtain raiser for what's to come this weekend as the November internationals continue. We have just 2 games again this weekend, and then next week we get this absolute rush of games coming in. But we're going to look at these 2 games, and the first one that we're going to get to see is the return of the Scots. Scotland hosting Tonga.
Remember Scotland play rugby. They
played very well.
Last time we saw them, they were doing great things in Paris.
That's right. They were stuffing the French, winning away in the Six Nations in Paris and London. Had a heck of a tournament. Really, really good team. The referees for this game, Nick Berry of Australia, all Aussie official team, Damon Murphy, Angus Gardner and Brett Cronin.
Cool, yeah.
And obviously bit of a mismatch on paper, but I'm just excited to see the Scots back. I'm excited to see the fans back in Murrayfield.
True.
Flower of Scotland giving
out,
socks again.
Piper's playing.
And yeah, the Scots, we forget, left things in a very, very healthy place.
They did.
They're as competitive a team as any in the Six Nations. There was nothing between 5 of those Six Nations in the tournament this year.
It. Yeah, they were very close in the Wales game, who ended up going on to win it. They ended up getting their win in France. They won two games. They won were both in Twickenham and Paris last year, and they were edged out at home in others. But it was very competitive Six Nations, and Scotland are definitely in a healthy place. They were a bit vexed by the summer tour shenanigans. I guess they had a load of things booked for summer, and all of them fell through.
Yeah, they wanted to play some tier 2 teams to their
Which
credit.
is always their credit.
Unfortunately, the Georgian COVID situation kicked in.
Yeah,
didn't get to play Romania. They had COVID issues themselves, as I recall.
Yeah.
And basically that didn't get to happen. But now they will get a chance to look a little bit at their depth chart, take stock of where they are and where they might need to improve heading into the always improving Six Nations. And they have some crackers of games coming up this tour as well. The Scots, I mean, they're going to have to be sharp as well as easy as it is to take on Tonga, and they'll probably have a good win this weekend. They got Australia, South Africa, and Japan, who we all remember did them in the World Cup.
They did in a very entertaining. All 3 of those games could be barn
and that's what I'm saying.
barnstormers.
Scotland could be the highlight of every week.
They are box office. Like they are, like win or lose, they are watchable. Similar to Japan as well.
Yeah.
You can effortlessly watch them. Whereas not like our USA friends who are going to grumble and make losing so ugly.
Yeah, no, they're playing a pretty brand. They've really worked on their defence, and it'll be exciting to see how well that'll kick on. Their forward packs were mean and tough. Their tactical kicking game with Hogg and Russell was sensational.
On the dime, it was excellent in Twickenham that day.
And right throughout the tournament. I mean, they did get beaten up by the Irish pack, but that was probably one blemish in an otherwise great championship, where they had that game against Wales, which was just so good. Box office, tries this way, tries that way. It was just a fantastic game, which unfortunately they ended the wrong side of.
Not a fun one to lose, but great one to watch.
They've worked on their defence since, and some of those big goal line stands in Paris will hopefully stand to them going into this tour. But first up, it is a challenge that is it's probably not going to be of the standard that maybe they'd like going into these 3 games. But Tonga, from their point of view, they're definitely a little bit stung by what happened. They made a lot of headlines by shipping 100.
They did,
and obviously they've like the headlines that they made aren't critical of them. It's just a question of like they've been massively affected by COVID first of all, and also just their constant situation. I think at present they have a bunch of players not being able to travel from the southern hemisphere. They have a bunch of players, because this is outside of the test window, who aren't going to be
also missing their head coach, who were recovering. Was vaguely recovering from a stabbing incident over summer we were talking about.
Exactly. He had a home invasion where he was Totai Kefu, and he stood up for his family, and he's still recovering from that.
So they're just my sympathy is pretty endless for Tonga in this one. I'm very impressed that they're going to fulfill the fixture. I don't know that it's necessarily right that they are in this forcing Tonga to fulfill these ones. I mean, they'll get a semi-full Murrayfield for it, and hopefully they get a bit of money in their pockets, although it's not agreed upon. That's another annoying thing about this game. They
don't have any guaranteed share of the revenues from the matches. They've been promised a goodwill gesture from the unions.
Donation.
We'll see what that is. A lollipop. Perhaps.
Yeah, it could be. like a tenner. Don't spend it all in one shot kind of job.
Obviously there needs to be reforms around that, and there's no fooling you into thinking there's an even playing field when they come to town, and it's not fair on them for such a proud rugby nation.
No,
I think if just to highlight it, even the players in the squad are on £500 a week, compared with I think it's £17,500 for the England internationals
for one appearance, isn't it?
Per week for them as well. So I mean, just the colossal difference is pretty horrific. The RFU, to their credit, have loaned a doctor, a physio, an analyst, and an operations manager for their tour. They don't have any of their staff, so it's going to be
a Tongan barbarians of sorts.
It is. Their captain, who did play for Newcastle and now is with Toulon, Tain Takalua, who's their scrummy. He's been sort of out talking about the 102-point thrashing. He's been talking about
no repeats of it.
He says that's not going to happen again.
Pride on the line.
Yeah, there's and he's sort of bigging up and saying that they're all really proud to represent the country, and when they dial it in, they can be a much more difficult side to play.
Yeah, no, we see it. It's similar to the Argentina criticism as like 2 years out from a World Cup. This is the worst you'll see them. Tonga, like it's very tough for them to arrange, kind of put squads together and get excited about all of these things when they're forced upon them. But when they make it to the World Cup, they are very often the best value of all the Pacific Island teams, sometimes including Fiji themselves.
Yeah,
they have
because of their toughness and their instincts for the game and their national pride. It's real. That said, for this tour, obviously they are a bare bones operation, and we'll bear that in mind as we watch them. Just looking at the game from the point of view of each team, we're going to start with the Scots, our hosts. They have named their side for this match. 4 debutants in the starting team, 8 overall in the squad.
Cool.
Obviously missing their Premiership based players. So there's no, for example, there's no Chris Harris, who was so vital to their operations. But they do have a decent amount of top level talent. They've got Schumann in for his first cap at Loosehead, who's been tearing it up for Edinburgh. Edinburgh is now residency qualified. Very fine scrummager in there with George Turner at hooker, who we know how good he can be. Xander Fagerson as well. And then they've got that masterful back row of Richie, Watson and Fagerson. Really good. Workhorses all. Their top team. They've got a very exciting Glaswegian centre partnership. Sam Johnson with his clubmate Tui Pilato.
Yeah, that is danger, all right. Interesting to see how Tui Pilato gets out there in the 13 jersey as well. Yeah, more options for them.
He's a wonderful attacking player, and their back three is just full of talent. They've gone with Darcy Graham at fullback.
Potential counter-attacking.
Yeah, it's just fun. Rufus McLean on debut. Kyle Stain is a dangerous player. And they have got Blair Kinghorn at 10, which he's been doing a bit for Edinburgh.
He's done a bit for Edinburgh. He's a little clunkier from there. I do prefer him as a fullback. We'll see how he gets on, himself and Ali Price, trying to marshal those troops. But I'd say if it's probably going to be decided in inside of that. I'm looking at that back row as a potential massive difference maker in terms of how this contest goes as well. But similarly, so like Schumann and Fagerson and Turner in the front row.
Yeah, and they've gone with Ollie Kebble has added his name this season to the list of players moving from loose to tight. It's a big old switcheroo. It's all the rage right now, and he's been playing.
Big Trevor's the trendsetter, really, isn't he? That's exactly. He's just grinning.
Everyone's looking at him, sticking his tongue out, going, I can do that.
Yeah.
And Ollie Kebble moving from loose to tight. You didn't really used to see that really, but obviously Keane Healy's done it this year. Big Trev is just chopping between them.
Yeah.
And now Kebble, he played a couple of matches there for Glasgow. He's going to bench from that position, and he's a very explosive scrummager at the best of times. So if it works, it could be very good. And then obviously the Scots are just looking to see. Like it's a question of not letting themselves be rattled by a tough Tongan team if that's what they're presented with.
That's true. They'll want to be adjusting on the fly. They will want to start at pace. That's like tempo is going to be key to them. If they can set a tempo that's ferocious, they'll probably find the edges. And guys like Darcy Graham and Kyle Stain out there will make hay if they're given any space and time, or if they're met with any passivity or in the defensive line, which you could see from a disjointed Tonga. So it'll be important for Scotland to try to start quick and test that, because it's very likely
discourage them. Get Hamish Watson over the gain line picking sharp lines, get Sam Johnson picking lines through the middle.
George Turner, big ball
carrier. Exactly. And Ali Price, it's on him to just keep them momentum.
A lot of it will be off Kinghorn at 10. I think a lot of it will come off 9 first, and it'll only be for spreading it, and they will try and spread it once it's in. And
they do like to play off 10, generally speaking, obviously with Finn Russell in there. Adam Hastings is now in the Premiership as well.
True.
They do have young Ross Thompson, who for my money has been a very promising player in Glasgow at the start of the season. I think when they kicked off the season, they'd Weir at 10, and I was like, no, don't be doing this. But actually they've got this lad Ross Thompson, and it's a positive. He's now into the squad.
10 prospect.
Maybe seeing the benefits from a Scottish point of view of some of the outsourcing of talent that they've done. I think they now have
forced their academies into kind of overdrive. They've only 2 clubs to be mining from, and it's like it definitely needs to be rotating players through.
They've more Scottish players playing decent club level footy than ever before, perhaps because of how well spread they are, and it's allowing them to get a look at some of these guys.
True.
But by and large, it's just sort of a stick to your rhythms. Don't get sucked into the mire of the Tongan, if Tongans are going to be really aggressive off the line and stop you, just play a professional game.
If Tongan,
kick them down
if a big
field,
heavy
work them at
Tongan
set
hits
piece.
you late and then lies on you, don't mush him in the face because you'll get yellow carded.
Exactly. But just if they're coming off the line defensively, just play a smart, sharp game. And as you say, lean on that back row. I mean, they've gone with Harley in the second row along with another debutant. Jamie Hodgson from Glasgow. It's a mobile enough looking back five.
It looks like they're built to move.
It's a little more so perhaps even than what they were fielding in the Six Nations, where they were quite set piece focused.
Well, it's kind of Six Nations kind of thrust it upon them. I think they kind of feel they have to try and lock down some of these areas where I think what Gregor's thinking in this one is that we might be seeing a Tonga side they're a bit disjointed and we'll want to set this pace high.
We want to pick as many players with attacking instincts as possible, and they have done, and then there's the potential here for a very fun team to go and do some very fun things. It's just a question of not doing a Scotland on it if things get rough and panicking and being not as mentally tough as you ought to be in those big moments.
Well, it'd be funny if Blair Kinghorn is and I don't wish it upon him, but throws a loose pick of a pass in the early going and suddenly they're 7-0 down, which wasn't part of the plan. Do they respond well to that? I still have faith in this side to rally and to come back. But it'll be interesting to see if they're forced to adjust by Tonga as well, and I hope they don't have it all their own way, and I imagine that they won't. I'm kind of buying some of the chat from Tonga. I think a few big tackles and a few big steals and just one or two little moments to try and upset the Scottish rhythm.
And that very much from the Tongan point of view is their model. I mean, the game is going to come at them quick. I mean, that's the thing. I was looking through their squad, obviously, for this game. So many men missing. There's Big Ben Tamifuda. There's guys who are going to come into this squad. The squad on paper isn't as bad as all that, but there is no Big Ben Tamifuda for this week. There's no Toulouse Ayanu for this week. There's no Walter Fafita for this week.
And I think that all of those guys might have been missing for that 100 drubbing as well.
They were
for similar circumstances
exactly
at the beginning of the year.
They haven't gone with Sam Lousy, which is interesting. And they've gone with sort of a young, inexperienced team, but not as bad as perhaps it might have been on paper. They have their dual distributors of Kurt Morath and James Fiva, 10 and 15. They definitely have some guys who can move the ball, but just looking through them all in their club history, there's a lot of Pro D2, New Zealand provincial level, Wellington and that championship that's going on now. It's just going to be 2 or 3 or 4 rungs higher than that when they take on the Scots. So the game is just going to explode out the gate right in front of them. How do they deal with that? Are they going to do a better job of it, obviously, than when they played the All Blacks? But also you look at the USA last week and just how slow they were to react to just the sheer pace of the game.
You don't want to see ridiculous grinning of dialed out grinning during Flower of Scotland or something. No. I'm hoping they bring a little bit of passion to it and they're able to, in the first half, they're still big physical men who, if they can get their hands on some of these whippy little Scots, put the shoulder through and drive them into the dirt and make them feel it, because there's potential disjointedness. There are new caps out there for this Scottish side. You want to try and be combative, be abrasive. If you talk about the Tongan pride, they pride themselves on their physicality
and their defence.
And when they meet their Pacific rivals, they are the biggest of those Pacific sides, and none of the Pacific sides are small, but physiologically they are big men, and as such, yes, they can often be run around, and the 60th minute may not be their friend, but for the first 20 odd minutes they can put that heft to good use.
And just try and be difficult to play against, I think would be my solution for them, rather than trying to maybe force something. I mean, I would like to see them attack the centre partnership from Scotland. They don't have Chris Harrison there. They are traditionally under Gregor Townsend. It's where they've been weakest, is in that sort of centre area.
Just cut open.
Absolutely. So picking hard lines into their midfield is 100% a good approach. But they should be kicking a lot when they get ball. They should be trying to with their kicking proactively. Yeah, but with their 210s on the field, they should be looking to just pin the Scots back and just be frustrating for as long as possible, just to irritate them and maybe get in their heads.
Test Darcy Graham at 15, slightly vertically challenged, few bombs. A clever kicking game. They will need to kick a lot, and most tier 2 sides should kick a lot, but very often what that equates to is some 1 or 2 bouts of kick tennis that end with really bad kick from the tier 2 side, a really bad kick that ends up being a try.
And Vaianu back there, not having him back there obviously sucks because he's so good at that. But I'd love to see them make it as tough as possible. I'd love to see them show up defensively. They're big. We know they can be big at the scrum.
Yeah.
I know the Scots
I'd
are
like
going
to
to
see an emotionally charged pre-match from them, and then I'd just like to see them bullish to represent the country again. That would be all I'm asking. Like, as I was saying at the start of it, like, I have all the slack ready to cut to Tonga here. Like, if they do end up shipping a load of points, I won't think any less of them for it.
It might be a little more similar to what they did the weeks after that game when they had their 2 games against Samoa in the World Cup qualifiers, when they did mix it for a while, but it was very evident that Samoa were like a decently coached, well put together actual team, and the Tongans were just a barbarian team, as you say. And I think it's going to be that, only with obviously against a tougher team than Samoa in Scotland, and hence I think we still are going to be looking at a big score. I actually just trust Scotland in this instance to just not get dragged into the mire, to play a solid, quick game,
and even if
punishing
against themselves in the first half, having the knowledge that the second half is going to be there is probably
and they've just too much talent out there. Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson, I just foresee having a very good game, and I think they'll move the ball smartly, and I'm curious to see how Blair King looks at 10.
I'm also curious to see how many Scots turn up for it in Murrayfield.
I think
I hope we get a decent crowd in and a bit of pageantry to surround the game, because it is curtain raising for the autumn internationals as well.
Yeah, the ones in
Scotland's
Europe,
for Scotland's ones as well, just getting them underway and with a good fanfare and having the piper up there and all of that. It'll just be good to see the Scots back in action in Test footy too.
Yeah. Do you have a scoreline to propose, or is there?
I don't know. I'm hoping that Tonga grab a try, at least one try. I'm hoping that they can do that. But probably no, like in the region of 50-7 or something.
Yeah, I was going to say 61-7.
Could have been. That kind of margin is what I reckon. And maybe the rain comes down and it's a bit of a mire and that margin shrinks a little bit. But that's not what I hope for.
Scotland too well organised. Yeah. Good everywhere. Set piece, defence, passing game. What lets them down is the mental side of the game, but I just don't see. I don't foresee that challenge.
I think they're going to be confident from before the whistle and throughout the game that they are the stronger side here, which will serve them well. Whereas when they're in doubt about that, that's when like the top 2 inches unravel. But don't think that Tonga are going to do that to them.
No, I think it'll be a happy day for the Scots. But we're going to move on.
Yes, indeed.
And it is time we turn our attention to the game of this weekend. And it has the potential to be one of the games of this series. There's a lot of good games this series, but we do have the on paper matchup of the year. We have the Rugby Championship champions against the Six Nations champions. The 2 winning sides from either hemisphere taking each other on. Yes, indeed, it is Wales against the All Blacks in the Millennium Stadium, or the Principality Stadium as it now is, in Cardiff. 5:15 p.m. local time on Saturday. This is going to be quite an occasion. Mathieu Reynal is the referee from France, obviously, and then they've Carl Dixon and Christoph Ridley of England on the AORs, and Brian McNeice of Ireland in at TMO. And this is going to be, this is definitely going to be the game of the weekend. It's just going to be a special occasion, I think, from an atmosphere point of view. First of all, they've been saying they've filled out their stadium, and I think they will fill it out. Actually, there has been a slight controversy this week that the WRU is like, we sold out, and loads of Welsh clubs who have ticket allocations like, no, we haven't. We have loads of tickets. You get them. But I think they will
move those tickets eventually. That's just some of the panic stuff and some of the old it's a sellout. We want to build it as a sellout, but we haven't sold out yet. Technicalities. I think they will put bums on seats for this one, and I'm just awaiting the pre-match pageantry. It's always something followed by the haka. The Welsh really singers special. Followed by the haka is always something to behold in terms of that. Turn your volume up. Those covering the game, I think it's Amazon now, and annoyingly the Prime Video, but want the crowd volume nice and high. Don't want to be hearing commentators drowning out any of that stuff. You just want to hear all of the sizzle that's going to be in the crowd. It's going to be electric before kickoff, and hopefully we get a great spectacle.
Indeed, I mean, much has been made of Wales's lack of personnel going into this game. Obviously, not having any of their non-domestic players. But once this game kicks off, there's enough talent there that this is just going to be quite an occasion, I think. There is, from a Wales point of view, there is always that overarching concern. I mean, they have a ropey enough history in November. They obviously, you have to go back to 1953 for the last time they beat the mighty All Blacks. Not even the great team of the 70s did it. That's
a nasty enough stat, and we're familiar with how long those can linger on your books when it comes to the All Blacks as well. So that's definitely meat for motivation for the side that is available. Obviously, as you were saying, they're missing some Premiership players, some top tours based players as well.
Yeah, and you can kind of just see like they tend to struggle in this window, or at least in really throughout forever. Not necessarily like badly struggle, but they've had a few years where they've failed to get any wins against the top sides, or they've traded wins and losses with the top sides. Actually, the last proper November window back in 2018 was the first time they'd ever done a clean sweep. They did Australia, South Africa, and then obviously went on to win that Grand Slam and had that great team that pushed the Springboks all the way in the World Cup semi-final. They were in a very healthy place off the back of that November series, and I think they'll be determined a little bit to do it again. But that said, there is a part of me that can so see the narrative where they just, as they were in the summer, not quite with their full teams, they don't rock up at the pitch, get beaten a little bit in a kind of a shootout of a game, and lose this game, maybe lose another game to the Springboks, and then somehow as Six Nations champions come in completely under the radar into next year's Six Nations, not favoured by anybody even though they're champions, and of course go and win it again.
That could be.
I can just so see them doing that.
Yeah.
But I do actually think that I think this Wales team is for real. I think the PVAC team is for real, and I think they'll give a good account of themselves.
Definitely, and I think just in terms of stylistic stuff, like what we've seen from Wales under PVAC, under the Kiwi brand, they've been the attacking all flair, all offense side in the Northern Hemisphere, and we know the All Blacks, fresh from their 100-point tonking of the US, they're in the mood to throw the ball around as well. So weather permitting, I don't know if they're going to have the roof closed over, which is an option, but ideally have a dry track and just shootout. May the best side win once we simmer down after all that kind of crackle pre whistle or pre kickoff. Yeah, then hopefully we'll just have a really fun game where both sides are endeavouring to play ball. Top
drawer on offense, absolutely. I mean, the All Blacks do look imperious. They feel very primed.
They also
and ready.
look match sharp.
Yeah,
I don't know what Wales look like.
They have mixed up and freshened up and rested at times their squad, I think, so well this year.
The balance of rest and hunger as well. When you can see guys like Braden Enor get their one chance of the season and light it up.
They look properly fresh. They don't look like the end of a long season kind of. It doesn't have that feel to it at all. It much more feels like an All Black team that is hungry, a little stung by what happened to them in that Springbok series, those 2 games where they didn't have much to do on offense or didn't get much off on offense, but it looks to have focused their minds, and I think they are going into this series thinking 5 wins.
That's what they're looking for. All right,
that's who they are.
This is it. They were vexed enough to suffer 1 defeat this year. They are going to be hard pressed to take another one off them, I dare say. Like for Wales or for ourselves, we'll be facing them in a few weeks' time as well. But this is definitely a hungry New Zealand side, a renewed New Zealand side that we've seen this year. Very much true to their roots, true to form. They are running things with reckless abandon sometimes.
Staying true to the brand as they did last week.
Back your skill set.
They are heading into, I think, their 11th straight week away from New Zealand.
There you go.
Obviously, they've been without a few players. Aaron Smith, Sam Whitelock has just rejoined the squad, but a few players, Tui Pilatu, have headed home. And Scott Barrett as well has headed home.
Right. Yeah.
There's definitely a difficulty that goes with this COVID situation, and it still is very much not normal for them.
Yeah.
And they've handled it very well from what I can tell. I mean, it doesn't seem to have taken anything out of them. But that's the only thing, is just that they are a long time out of home, and perhaps the light at the end of the tunnel is being seen. But here's hoping they can batten down the hatches and be fine for the next few weeks. I don't think they're in a total bubble environment, but there is these COVID concerns. Willis Halaholo tested positive for COVID this week.
He would have had a chance to play against the home nation coming. That might have been fun. He's also a useful asset who would have been available to them, in given that they're whinging about their resources being depleted or not being fully released, which is true. But then it's a net result of why is Dan Biggar not playing in Wales?
What more is the point is, why are you making this fixture outside of the test window?
That's
probably the main problem
as well.
But as it is, we're going to get the 2 teams going at each other in as best a position as we can. And we're going to now just take a look at the winning conditions, sort of just from the point of view of each team. We're going to start with Wales. We do have the Welsh squad for this week. It is not as weak as all that, is all I'll say. There's plenty of top quality Welsh and Lions internationals.
It's basically a B team.
It is not basically a B team. There are some very fine players out there. I mean, listen, there is no Dan Biggar. There are significant weaknesses in the side. There's no Louis Rees-Zammit, as we know.
There you go.
They Wyn Jones at loose head, just going from strength to strength, really class player. Ryan Elias and Thomas Francis making up that front row. In the locks, Adam Beard and Alan Wyn Jones, that is full strength, all class.
Yeah.
Alan Wyn Jones obviously captaining the side. Ross Moriarty, who had a very good summer tour.
He did.
In the back row.
Who did step up to that Puma physicality.
Basham, who's in very fine form at club level, and Aaron Wainwright, who's in good form as well. Making up that back row, some decent loose forwards. Huge job for them this week, obviously.
Sure.
Then they've gone for Thomas Williams, whose form is a little spotty, but at his best, he is one of. I do really like what he brings to the Welsh side.
I think that is a pretty succinct summary of all Welsh scrummies. Form is a little sketchy, but at his best, beautiful.
And Thomas Williams is very like that. He's a prickly character as well. So lining up against TJ, that's going to be a fun battle.
Halfback antics that could be going on.
The
play could be disrupted between
in
two lippy halfbacks having a go at each other. Yeah, that's definitely on the cards. That is going to be fun.
And then interestingly, Gareth Anscombe gets his go at the 10 shirt.
It's great to see him back. God, he's been missing for so long, and it was such a blow to them going into the last World Cup, because he was a guy they were hedging a lot on, and he was delivering for them.
If you remember, in the run up to that World Cup, they went through this period where everyone they were given the jersey to wasn't given up, whether it was Patchell or Evans or Anscombe or Bigger. Like whoever it was who was getting the jersey was adding to it and keeping a hold of it.
Yeah.
And I think they would be like, they would love it if Gareth Anscombe could grab this again with both hands, like he did back then.
Is playing, because I mean they're distributing off 10, 12, 13. Just like they have wingers who distribute as well. They're just playing an attacking brand that kind of allows when they get a flow going, your 10s can all look very, very good playing in that system.
There's no doubt about that. They've got Johnny Williams and Jonathan Davis. Jonathan Davis interestingly pushed out to the 13 channel, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we've got Josh Adams in there, world class winger. During the Lions tours, one of the form wingers in the world. Owen Lane is a quality finisher, and Johnny McNichol again, another Kiwi.
Johnny McNichol
against the All Blacks,
awesome character. The man who just always scores against Leinster. He's burned into my brain as a scarlet. He just always grabs tries against Leinster.
And even more history on the bench. The Priestland will be covering the 10 spot as well. So Rhys Priestland's going to get a go. It's a decent squad. The bench for me is a little concerning. I do like Rhys Carey and Dylan Lewis,
decent option,
Will Rowlands and Seb Davis. I worry about. I've just seen a couple of loose performances from both of them. But we know on their day they can deliver. This
is true. And Rowlands, to be fair, was part of that Wasps outfit that made the final and has been part of what has improved Dragons as well since coming there. So I think like he's got potential to grow into it. He was definitely thrust into the Welsh jersey fairly quick smart from a few good months of form in the Premiership and seemed to drown there last season. But I'm hopeful that he can get up to that pitch with them. But there are a few little absences that are noticeable. But there are a few options. Like Wyn Jones up there against Laulala. Like there's potential scrum pens in that for them.
Yeah, 100%.
I would reckon. Mathieu Reynal definitely going to be eyeballing that. Like some of that wily Wyn Jones and those antics that served him so well in the Six Nations last year and on the Lions tour could pay dividends here.
Yeah. We do know what side PVAX Wales want to be. I think we saw that in the Six Nations. They want to be clinical, they want to be smooth, and they want to be try hunting. And even more than just offensive, it is about hunting tries, and they do find them very well, working their wingers into space, finding space wherever it is, and then just being clinical when they get that opportunity. It is what made them so good in the Six Nations. They were relentless, and even when they were losing other battles, they found a way to get scores.
They painted a picture not dissimilar to what the All Blacks were doing in that first game, the 100th test against the Springboks, that they won despite being dominated everywhere. Like that was very similar to what Wales did to Ireland.
Yeah, and perhaps even Scotland, you could argue, blew them away up front. And they did still manage just to be more clinical than the Scots. They had a couple of big goal line stands, but then on the other end is where they made it count. Their red zone efficiency was off the charts. That is who they want to be, and it's about getting the likes of Josh Adams. They don't have Rhys Sammet this week, but getting Josh Adams in a bit of space, getting McNichol in a bit of space.
Man can be devastating. We know that.
And I'm looking forward to seeing Thomas Williams. I hope we get good version of him driving the pace.
Could be a great pace, hungry pair that haven't seen as many minutes as they might feel entitled to. It would be lovely to see them hit the ground running and get the offense moving, because there's potential for a barnstorming shootout here, and they will feel they are best placed of probably any Six Nations team, not just because they're champions, but by
to hang in a shootout
with the All Blacks. Like any other team, you'd think it's very ill-advised, but I'm kind of keen to see
You could argue. I mean, they were the more clinical side. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Like Jay Davis back in there on the edge at 13 is an interesting one. I think he showed in the early season for Scarlets just glimpses of what he can be. He was obviously in that team.
Certainly, when he gets his hands on the ball, he can be very dangerous out there. It's the other side of the ball that you worry about, and when he's up against strike runners from New Zealand, and he has a little less pace than he used to, and he's not quite in at 12.
No question. That is a concern. But from an offensive point of view, it is exciting. I think Johnny Williams is a guy who every opportunity he's had, he's taken it with both hands.
True.
The back row can be explosive. So it is just about sort of maintaining that high pace, striking as best they can off set piece, trying to find weak edges. The All Blacks will have the speed advantage of them, but if they can work one or two strong carries through the centres, a couple of offloads, and then strike off that like they did so well in the Six Nations to find the room for Josh Adams, they just take all kinds of tries, and that definitely is the picture for them.
True.
I think the concern is the not so much whether they're as clinical as the All Blacks, but whether they generate as many chances for themselves as the All Blacks do,
and if they can disrupt the All Blacks, because obviously we were fresh from the last time we saw the All Blacks. They were literally offered with no disruption, and we saw just how devastating that can be when they put racking up 100 points easy. So like you can't rely on them to be dropping balls or something here and there, and then you're going to have to make it slow. And part of the Welsh identity, which they did have some of in that Six Nations as well, is that, you know, hands in breakdowns and slow long tackles that take 6 seconds.
Can they drag TJ into the mire?
Yeah,
can they make it slow?
Can sometimes go awry.
Exactly. Make the breakdowns awkward and slow, and that's where Big Alan Wynne-Jones obviously has such a role to play.
He does.
But
he
has
to spearhead all the other guys to do the same thing.
Adam Beard as well. Wynne-Jones, such a workhorse, and then obviously the young back row. Just it's a chance to make a name for themselves. That they can hang with New Zealand, but it does involve being sort of, and we saw it from an All Black point of view. We saw them against the Springboks at times when they were just trying to be themselves, just really leaving that jackal constantly. If Wales can read the game well enough to stop them before the line break, because once the line is broken, it tends to be over.
That's when Will Jordan scores his try.
Exactly. So once the line is broken, it's over. But if you can catch them before they break the line, they tend to have 2 or 3 support runners running the tracking line, and nobody running the line to clear the ruck. And that is where Wales can go to work, and they are instinctually that kind of team defensively, and that is where they'll have their ins. If they can win the turnover battle in this game,
and that'll bring the crowd in as a huge factor. The home crowd factor will be huge. They'll be in song, and they are a knowledgeable crowd, the Welsh rugby crowd, of course. So massive steals, massive tackles, slow rucks. That even on the defensive side, they will be into positive, proactive plays from all of their guys. So it'll be about knocking that All Black momentum, setting them back a few pegs, and then keeping that red zone efficiency stat that they had so in such a fine fettle throughout the Six Nations. That did go awry, and that, like the summer showing their 2-match series against the Pumas, they were shorn of their lines and they didn't really play themselves.
Yeah, and they weren't fielding a team as strong as this one, not close to it, and they were losing physical battles, which they can't do this week. I mean, Ross Moriarty, I look at the back row in particular, Basham making the step up, Wainwright, who we know has played at the top level, like all 3 of them can't be swallowed up by the All Blacks, and they're up against quality players like Dalton Papali'i's back in, Ethan Blackadder has been brilliant for the All Blacks. Like that is a serious test for them, just winning those collisions against
the
All
winning
Black
or losing
forwards.
of this game.
Exactly. Are they going to survive contacts?
A scrap at every breakdown, and things like line out, like both of these sides actually are pretty combative in terms of defensive line out steals, and they'll both be looking to disrupt each other. Likewise at the scrum, I think I expect more than pure scrummaging driving. I think some binding fiddly sticks and some kind of stuff to try and buy penalties could be in the offing here as well.
Well, Wynne-Jones is just a phenomenal scrummager these days. He's more than just the wily man. I mean, he is that too. He's a very, very good scrummager who can hang with the best of them, and he must be. I think he's on cloud 9 in terms of his confidence, having just been so good on the Lions tour, so good in the Six Nations. He gets through a ton of work, but he's just growing into himself as a scrummager. And there are weaknesses in that All Black front row. I mean, they have no George Bower this week. They have Napo Lalala with Lomax covering at tight head. Like if Wales don't tend to be a team that attacks at scrum time.
But Wynne-Jones and Rhys Carey up against Lalala and Lomax, that's a matchup that they might fancy winning over the course of an 80 minutes.
It's just about winning enough battles stopping the All Blacks on enough occasions, winning the turnover battle at set piece. If they can do all of those things and give themselves enough opportunities, that would be vital for them. And the other area, of course, is the kicking game. It was what really did let them down at times in the Six Nations and lead them to nearly lose so many games where they were the more clinical team.
The big test of Anscombe coming back into the red jersey.
And Thomas Williams, like all of them, just the sharpness of the kicking game on exit and just how they go about their exits might need to change, because the end results have been so poor for them. They've just been giving up opposition attacks often inside the 40 straight off restarts. Their exit game has suffered for that in recent times, and it's definitely going to be an area they're going to have to work on. And I'm interested to see if they will have made any adjustments, or if it'll just be the same kind of tame box kick setup with a guy who's not kicking that well off the base.
Yeah,
and
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that kicking will prove important, particularly if conditions are in any way tough out there. If they do have the roof open and that's a factor, then the kicking games of both will become very, very important. And it just remains, it's a bit of an unknown for Wales, but obviously both of these sides, or either of these sides, could be taking a 50-22 if it's there for them. Try and take that on.
Yeah, they're both heads up teams.
Yeah, exactly. So like try and look for chances and sniff out the best route to scores, and that's what this Wales team are all about.
That's the main thing. I think the main focus for Wales, obviously it'll be interesting. The All Blacks have a very good defence. Wales' offence is going to be slightly different without their main players. Obviously no like Nick Tompkins or any of these exciting talents.
Or LRZ.
Exactly. It couldn't be stifled by the All Black defence more so than it ever was in the Six Nations. It's entirely possible. The All Black defence is very solid.
A lot of what their success came from the Six Nations was playing with a width that the teams in the Six Nations don't like playing or don't play with at all, and catching them napping. Whereas the All Blacks are slightly more used to seeing.
Yeah, well, you saw what they did against Australia, held their width so well, and that's where it's on guys who played up so well on the edge, like Adam Beard in the Six Nations, to make the right calls and the right opportunities. Sometimes to tuck and cut a hard line. Yeah, and
if
check
everything's
the defense.
Drifting, maybe you just need to straighten towards the goalpost and go.
When you've got the beanpole arms, you can even get a hand free when you do that if you win the contact. And those little plays and those little offensive moments will be determinative, and then just not giving the All Blacks up anything, because even in games where defences have had successes against the All Blacks, it's just the little moments that just turn into tries.
Your own
you look at
errors.
Villy LaRue's dropped restart try before there's even a ruck. That first game against the Springboks, when the dead ball went to deck and then Cody Taylor picked it up, spun around, broke a tackle and then try. That's the kind of thing that they have to be so sharp to. Any bit of broken ball, any ball on the turf, Wales, if they have any chance of winning this game, need to be first to that ball, need to be energised by the crowd and who they traditionally are, which is this wildly difficult team to play. They need to be all of that.
Cardiff needs to be a cauldron, and it needs to be an intimidating sight for the All Blacks.
And the All Blacks need to be punished, and then maybe their loose passes don't turn into tries for them. That's the kind of picture you want to be painting early doors, getting some penalties, heaping the pressure. And because there are some doubts about the All Black multi-phase, that a solid defence can
if all going to plan, it could be Wales and not New Zealand who pounce on a loose ball and go in under the sticks.
That's what they made a name for themselves doing.
Both of these sides have that in their MO, so
I think Josh Adams try is definitely part of the Welsh winning conditions, you would think.
Johnny McNichol getting his name on the sheet would be definitely potential for that too. I'm excited to see Wales back in the international fold. I hope that they bring all of that energy and all of that combativeness and make it a really, really intense test match, which is what I want to see from the All Blacks. As fun as it is to see them run in 100 try or 100 points, it was
significantly funner watching them take on the Box for those two games, and we want a similar show from Wales. From the New Zealand point of view, we do have their squad as well, as I say, a little bit weak and perhaps a prop, not necessarily the first choice guys, but Joe Moody in there. I suppose he probably is a first choice guy.
Cody Taylor,
Joe Moody, Cody Taylor obviously is phenomenal. Nepo Lalala. The band is back together in the second row. Brody Retallick and Sam Whitelock.
And I do love that pairing. To be fair, it's just awesome.
Iconic nearly at this stage. They've gone with Ethan Blackadder, Dalton Papali'i and Artie Savia as the back row, just savage.
Really
probably,
good balance.
Probably the form guys.
Well, it's also the balance. I love when with Blackadder in there doing a lot of dirty work. It allows kind of more room for your Artie to roam, and it looks.
It's a little harsh props on Luke Jacobson.
It is.
He's been so good recently, but he's not in this week. But he'll get his chance as the tour goes on, and that's kind of the beauty of this squad.
True.
TJ Perinara, as I say, getting the shot at 9. Bowden Barrett, there's the old Hurricanes band back together as well.
Bowden Barrett set to make his 100th appearance, I believe, in this
one. The 11th All Blacks Centurion, quite an exclusive club.
It is a very exclusive club, and he's
worth his place in it. Like, what a player!
Still, arguably the best rugby player in the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a year ago, you would have said that. I mean, I don't know. Like, he's had a good season.
No, now it's arguable.
Last year
exactly.
He's still just a phenomenal talent. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
The odd loose moment, but just so quick, so sharp. Defensive cover play and offensive chaos play, just the best around.
Yeah. True.
So good and well worthy of his 100th cap, and congratulations to him. They've gone with Havili at 12, as we knew they would. Their new man. But interestingly, Rico out to the wing and Anton Leonard-Brown in at 13 is their other option.
Yeah.
Will Jordan, the try-scoring machine, maintains his place on the right wing. Sever Reese dropped to the bench. And
impact, though.
No D-Mac either in the squad. Jordy Barrett gets his shot at 15.
D-Mac given a rest for later wars. He did do a lot of running in that US game. How many times did he run up and down that pitch when he was scything through?
Personally, I want to see him win the battle with Jordy Barrett. As much as I like Jordy Barrett, I do kind of want to see D-Mac in that.
From an ideological point of view, the All Black 15 should look a little more like D-Mac and a little less like Jordy.
But then Jordy shows his value when he kicks those clutch winning kicks to win games constantly. And I wonder, I'd imagine he'll be
D-Mac does that too.
He'll be on place kicking duty, I'd say, Jordy Barrett. And they've got Mwanga to come in, Brad Weber to come in, Akira Ioane, Tupou Vai, who's been in such stellar form. And then there's the little concern of prop with Tui Nukuafe and Lomax, not the best scrummagers. That's potentially the in for Wales. They've got Taukiaho, who seems to have stamped his place in as legit hooker cover as well. No Dane Coles and no Amua this week. But very, very solid squad. Yeah. And I think they'll be confident in a couple of areas. I think they'll be confident of their physicality against this Wales team.
They will.
That's something that we saw. I think Scotland and Ireland particularly really get on top of Wales in the physical battle, and then just on their side of the ball when they had it, they were just sending them backwards and sending them backwards and sending them backwards. And if the All Blacks are as physical as those sides at their best, and you look at some of the stars they have in there, the Cody Taylors, Papalitis, who just put footwork as well as physicality on their carries. That's going to be the main point of focus, is just getting over that gain line, winning those contacts with speed, and then just making sure that Wales can't make shite of their ball legally by just making them go backwards the whole time. It's so much more difficult.
And then the other part of that plan is they picked Jordy at fullback with a mind towards that first game against the Springboks, where he was just imperious under the high ball, because they know that Wales, coming to Wales, you're probably
they just know coming to Europe,
you're going to have to field a lot of high balls, and even look at even if their tape goes back as far as that World Cup, in terms of World Cup semi-final with Wales and South Africa, they know that Springboks and Welsh, the box kick is definitely a live tactic in this one. It will be all day long, and so having a guy like Jordy back there in the form that he was showing at the end of that Rugby Championship, so that's all part of the plan. Win front up physically, drive them back. When they kick, be secure as a rock under it, and then get your offense going. It's got to be the plan.
I think as far as the adjustments that they have to make, it's only little tweaks. They've been very good so far. We mentioned it in the context of the Wales preview, though, that really the offensive breakdown needs to be a point of focus for this team.
It does and it doesn't, in that, like, it's the beauty of the scores that come is the ambition of the support lines that they run.
But I'm not saying eliminate them. I'm saying maybe one or two runners per play need to be sacrificed to resource the ruck. And I just think that you do need that against these teams. I think you saw it in the Springboks. They lost the ability to score on multi-phase. Mostly because they were just phase. They just couldn't build over a number of phases because they were losing the rucks. And Wales, while not as good at the box as this, are the kind of team that'll do that damage to you if you're going to behave that way, and they could catch you behind the gain line. You're away from home. I just think they do need to focus on that ruck area.
You're probably right.
Renewed emphasis on it. They got Whitelock back in the team. They got Retallick back in the team too. Just class enforcers.
Dalton Papali'i can smash a ruck or two if he wants to.
The back row do love running in the loose areas, but I think a bit of the hard work needs to be done here as well, just to win this game. It was
a good point that I think Rob Kearney was making about the Bulls in the context of the South Africans adjusting to European rugby, and he was talking about that, going like they're going to be shocked by how little separation exists in rugby between ball carrier and ruck resourcer. It's just very, very tight. It's tough to get in on that, and therefore the multi-phase comes. Like, it's going to be an adjustment for them. It's probably an adjustment for the All Blacks too. They're aware of it. It's just going to be a different kind of game, different kind of track to what they were facing in the Southern Hemisphere. So probably an adjustment with that in mind. No bad thing.
This is a Wales team that is without Ken Owens, Tipperick, Liam Williams, and Dan Biggar. So that is
Leo Leary.
Say that again?
Louis Rees-Zammit.
Yeah, well, sure, but Louis Rees-Zammit...
He's probably not a ruck Rees-Zammit.
What I was going to say was just that is kind of the mental spine of the team, minus Alan Wynne-Jones, who's the one there. And I definitely think if you're the All Blacks and you're looking to make sure that you win this game, you target and get on top of and nullify Alan Wynne-Jones, and you track him around the field, and you track him at line-out, and you don't throw to him at line-out, you just don't give him a chance to make plays. Hound him on the defensive line-out, and on the offensive line-out, go where he isn't. Make him a non-factor in the game. Whenever he gets close to the ball on defense, if he's looking to put a hand in, you've two guys ready for him. Like if the All Black forward pack can take Alan Wynne-Jones out of the game, it'll go a long ways to just knocking back the confidence of a somewhat inexperienced Welsh team.
No, indeed, and especially if they can apply scoreboard pressure on top of that. Through threes at the beginning, which they will kick through Geordie's boot, I'd imagine, but work yourself into positive territory, take your gains, but then obviously be ready and willing to strike, which is not something they need to be told to do very often.
No,
they
indeed,
are ready
and
willing to strike.
One of the things that you've cited about this All Black team in the past, since really the discovery of Havili, and I actually think they haven't gone with this week with the Havili-Rico partnership, but they do have the ability to bring Rico in off the edge. What they have in that midfield is such a speed advantage over everybody. Bowden, Barrett and Havili, and then possibly you get Rico in. ALB is no slouch either, don't get me wrong, but there's just tremendous amount of sort of back three level, winger level speed in that midfield area. And then you're up against a centre partnership of Jay Davis, who has been way more comfortable at 12 in recent times, and Johnny Williams, who's been kind of in and out of the side but isn't the quickest guy either. That is where they're going to have to go hunt in that Welsh midfield to just overload it with speed, quick runners, blowing Wales away. They could have a field day on that sort of midfield edge in and around the 13 channel.
Well, that was what they did pretty much to the US last week. Obviously a much easier challenge, but it was like the speed difference once it got two passes deep into the back lines, where it was just man for man. There are numbers there to cover it, but not if DMAC just runs around you. There isn't, and it's like they have that in their locker. We were saying earlier that when they line up Bowden, Havili and Rico with whomever on the back three, that is the quickest midfield you'll ever see in world rugby. It's so fast, lightning fast, and they do still have that even with ALB rotating in. They will try and be the quicker side, albeit a very quick Welsh side they're facing.
Find the edge. Find Jay Davis on the edge.
Overloading him is the big
absolutely
big job
overload
for the
him.
offense,
I mean, it's harsh on him, but he's lost a step of pace. He's not as comfortable defending the 13 channel as he once was. And I never thought he was 100% comfortable.
It's already a difficult channel to think. From Wales's job is to try and make it not about the 13 channel, to try and make it at source and at set piece or at ruck. It's already gone to pot for them, so it doesn't matter. And then Jay Davis isn't overloaded and he can guide his troops and whatnot. But from the All Black point of view, it's about creating and we're just going to run two runners at either shoulder on Jay Davis and have a guy at the back.
Exactly. You do a little screen to work Bowden a little wider, and then you have ALB or even Havili on his outside, and then Rico coming in off his blindside wing, all overloading that channel. It's just going to be too much for Wales to deal with, and they'll find an edge and they'll find a try, and they don't need to be told how to find tries once they break the line. Their support play, it's too clean, too good. They just don't make mistakes when they make line breaks. I haven't seen them butcher one all year. I don't expect them to do it this
the
year.
The only times they butched them was in some towards the tail end of some of that Springbok stuff, where they make a half break and then be isolated.
They weren't
still a risk.
They never quite straight butchered a line break though. I don't think.
Not properly.
Once they do break your line, they do tend to be lethal. And that's very much the MO in this game. And I think they'll back themselves from a speed and physicality point of view, from just an athletic standpoint, against this a little deprived Welsh side, to get on top of them, to score tries, to win the contacts, and then on the defensive end, because they're winning contacts, to just make it that bit more difficult for what the Welsh are trying to do, and then to cleanly win the shootout by about a score or two.
That's the plan. All right, they need to be a little wary about scrum time, which it's just always a caveat to All Black optimism for me. I'm not madly enamoured with their prop stocks, and I do think that Wales have the edge in that set piece. So mission, lock it down, move on to somewhere else, make it not about that. Something that very often Wales are the side coming in taking
Wales will likely oblige to that. They just so rarely go in hungry to attack your scrum. It's not who they are.
It's true. It's more likely that you'll see kind of Bledisloe series scrummaging, where it's lockdown. It's in. It's out. We're moving on.
Exactly right.
Yeah, the ref saying balls there. Well, it is a French ref, so that might change that, and it's something the All Blacks should be aware of. Like if their tight head has gone down, it's unlikely that the French ref will say no, balls there, use it. He might just give a penalty to your opponents, which is not something that you see all weeks. But little caveat to attach to it. But I think on balance, I have a little more faith in the All Blacks than Wales to get this one done this week.
Oh yeah, I would think so.
I just think they're in great form, and I don't know that Wales are in any kind of form.
No, it's hard to know what form they're in indeed.
But it's tough because the home field advantage and the Millennium Stadium thing and the noise, all the factor.
The Welsh offense is very good from the All Black defensive point of view. Just a few final notes for them would just be to keep their width. Make sure that Wales can't get to the edge. All they want is Josh Adams in space.
So defend like you did the Wallabies.
Exactly right. It's such a similar challenge, and then they can punish loose passes then from that position, as we know well. But defend with width, pressure building from the inside, not from the edge. Pressure from the inside to push up and force Wales. Just give Wales nowhere to go. And then obviously the constant note with the All Blacks. Resource the spot around the ruck because Thomas Williams will. That's a classic sneaky Welsh try where your defence is on top and then all of a sudden you just don't resource around the ruck and Thomas Williams does a little chip and go and all of a sudden Wales have a try out of nowhere. That's something that the All Blacks have to be mindful of.
Pants down moments around the ruck.
Oxburger did it to them last week.
No, it happens all the time. It's part of it. Just the way their defensive system works just leaves that there for running scrummies. So the Welsh will be looking to target there. But on balance, I think the All Blacks are the better team coming into this on paper and on form, and I'm going to back them to edge it, but I think it will be very, very tight because I think that home field advantage and that kind of cauldron atmosphere will weigh something into it, and I'm kind of expecting a bit of a really, really good contest here.
I don't know quite that I'm expecting that. I'm hoping for that. I think, I think any side can take confidence out of what the Springboks did to the All Blacks, but I just continue to be very impressed with what the All Blacks are doing. I think they're learning, they're getting better. I don't think the Welsh defence is going to be able to do to the All Blacks what the Springbok defence was able to do. And then I see them scoring tries, and I'm not sure that I see Wales winning enough contacts to score enough tries on the other end. I think they'll score 1 or 2, maybe 3, but I think New Zealand will score 5, maybe 6. So I do think that just on the end, I just don't know if I back the Welsh defensively to hang with that All Black speed and tempo. And as much as the occasion matters, once the whistle blows on a dry track, these All Blacks will just rise above it, and I think they'll win. And I think if I was to guess a score, I'd say, I don't know, I'm going to go high. I'm going to go, something like 45-20.
I'm going to say it might look something similar to that Japan-Australia game and be like 30-something, 20-something.
That's probably more realistic than 45. Wales to do a little better than concede 45, maybe.
Yes, I would.
Although they are very good, these All Blacks.
This is true. This is true. Who you got? Let us know in the comments down below. Any of our Welsh subs very vexed at neither of us backing the Welsh. Let us know down in the comments below. But I suppose with that we will move on and park the international footy for this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and couple of good games, particularly that game to look forward to, and plenty to look forward to in the weeks to come. But that is it for this week. We are going to touch base just with the World Cup qualifiers.
That's right.
There's going to be a few games to come this November. Rugby Europe is going to start up and finish its season. There's a few games to go in that. Spain are getting ready for that actually this weekend with a game against Italy the Italian reserves, which would be a decent little outing for them. I'll definitely give it a gander if I get the chance, just to see whether this Spanish team are going to rally at all.
Are we going to see a more disciplined Spain side?
Well, I mean, it's do or die. I mean, this time last year they were like, hey, we're going to be the team from Europe that bursts onto the scene and qualifies for the World Cup, and now they're like forgotten at the bottom of a massive hole they have to dig themselves out of.
It's true,
and we'll see.
And maybe maybe we just see Italy's depth is growing, and Italy A can.
Italy A, like it's a lot of URC talent in there. It's not like it's a decent squad.
It's a professional.
I was looking at their squad. It's a decent squad. Like it's
a challenge for Spain, all right, albeit it is in Madrid. I think that one, Frank Murphy, Andrew Brace, Chris Busby, and Ollie Hodges, a whole IRFU
there you go.
Kind of band to ref that one. So we'll see. Hopefully, that if just knowing Andrew Brace or knowing even Frank Murphy, he is very likely to be vexed if Spain are up to any of those antics. They will be getting cards for all of that.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think that it was so beyond the pale what happened that it's not going to happen again.
I hope you're right on that one.
Yeah. There was also just a couple of notes. We haven't podcasted since Uruguay and Chile had their incredible wins.
Last podcast we were previewing the big decisive clutch rubber matches between Chile and Canada and Uruguay and the USA, and it was the South Americans who triumphed by virtue of getting more right than their Northern American counterparts on the macro as well as the micro, and in terms of off pitch and on pitch. And both in Valparaiso and in Montevideo, it was Chile managed to dump Canada out of the World Cup for the first time in the qualifying stages. They will not be in attendance at Rugby World Cup 2023. Chile, by contrast, is the first time they've ever got it as far as they have in the World Cup qualifying campaign. They have a shootout against the US for America's 2. The US having fallen in Estadio Charrua in Montevideo to a very, very impressive Uruguay side who booked their place emphatically in the World Cup. And Uruguay good value for it as well. They're great to watch. Los Terros, especially down in that South American sunshine.
They turned it on. I mean, they where they were shocked the week prior, they shocked the States in a raucous atmosphere. We saw a bit more of the real Uruguay, the pace they put on the ball, Freitas being everywhere. They
sexy rugby. Sexy South American rugby.
Exactly. They found tries where the US didn't and maintained a high tempo that the US couldn't live with, and they are a very impressive side. And I'm looking forward to seeing them have a cut now at Italy in this autumn.
Window, because now they will face them in that World Cup, won't they? Now that they're in that group, so a little dry run for that.
And Chile, I'm just very impressed with. I mean, the first week I got the impression, and listen, it was an impression because it's what the game was, that they were kind of niggly and overly defensive. But in front of their home fans, they actually put on some lovely offense. Their out half, Fernandez, he was sensational. He was everywhere. He was carving the Canadians up this way and that. And poor Peter Nelson was no competition.
No, he wasn't.
I do wonder sometimes, we were talking about the depth chart in North America a little while ago, why there is such a determination from these North American sides to go to Irish players who couldn't cut it in the URC and think of them as the solution when they've got such athletes in their countries.
It's true.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah, no, although I'm happy enough for Peter Nelson to carve a career out. But
these sides, by contrast, the Chile and Uruguays of the world, all homegrown, all domestic,
super talented.
Class. Yeah, exactly, and very they cling to an identity. They have an identity in a way that the North American sides don't quite.
No,
because they're kind of bastard makeup squads a little bit sometimes, and these ones are very clean. There's clarity of purpose. There's communication. They all know exactly what they want to do and who they are. And they all buy into it. And I think absolutely. In terms of the macro trends,
as well as all of this,
they both sides deserve to win this game. And Chile USA 100%. Is going to be a very interesting game.
It will massive interesting matchup that I like. To be honest, I'm kind of rooting for Chile
I
at
know,
the minutes. I know
know.
World Rugby would not be agreeing with me, but I'm just thinking, which side's getting more right? Which side is the prettier one to watch? I think it was Squidge actually did a video on it. Shout out to him, but he was talking about the last time that Chile managed to make it nearly as far as they have in the World Cup qualifying process. They did win a double legged affair in very similar fashion, like make it a dogged, tactically very nasty leg in the first game, the away leg, and keep it a 1-score game, and then have a high tempo, high octane, completely different approach in the second one and blow them away. And it worked a treat because they were somewhat nasty up in the Canadian leg.
Well, they had an eye gouge.
They were brutish. They were physical. They were not really as expansive. But then in Valparaiso, down in the South American sunshine, as you put it, they did run the ball from pretty much everywhere, and they were determined to set a tempo that did surprise the Canadians, and it worked a treat. So I'm excited for that now. Chile USA, how's it going to go?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I think it's next summer, so it's a while
away. Yeah.
We'll have our Europe 1 by then as well, and I think our Europe 2 as well, actually. So we'll have the World Cup qualifiers moving on into the
that'll be the last ones to decide before then repechage knife fight time.
And we all love a good repechage knife fight.
This is it. And which of those sides will be just packing their bags, and which of them will still be sharpening the knives for what's to come.
It's going to be the World Cup qualifying is so much more interesting than it ever was these days.
It's true.
There's a lot of fun sides, and some will miss out.
A lot of teams are on the up, some teams are on the down, and some are on the up in the tier 2 stocks, and it's good to see South American rugby getting dividends for what we've kind of suspected for a year and a half, what with with Slar and with some of the stuff you're seeing out of them. They're going like, surely they're on the up and up, aren't they? It seems that way. And
they just seem to be getting things right.
Yeah.
In a way that not everybody is.
True.
We should also make mention of the women's game. There's a couple of matches going on this weekend. There's your box office England women v New Zealand women.
Black Ferns coming to Twickers, is it?
No, Sandy Park.
Sandy Park
in Exeter. Yeah, which is a fine stadium for it. And probably get a good crowd there as well.
I would hope so.
The true heavyweights of the women's game.
This could be the World Cup final next year very easily.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. It's a while since we've seen these sides play each other. England imperious at Six Nations level, but not played aside like the All Blacks. On the other side of things, though, they do seem to be just ratcheting up the professionalism.
True.
And the Black Ferns are responding, or New Zealand Rugby are responding.
They've created their Super Rugby.
Yeah, Super Rugby Aotearoa for women.
Yeah.
That's obviously class, and both sides seem to be leading the way as far as pro rugby goes. It'll just be an interesting look at where both sides stand. I don't think any result would necessarily surprise me, although I do ultimately back what England are doing a little more than anybody else right now.
True.
And all 4 England autumn tests, it's a 2-match series against New Zealand, I believe, and then USA and Canada.
There you go.
All 4 are going to be broadcast live on the BBC.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
That's pretty good.
Fair play to the Beebs for representing as far as the women's game is concerned. Because their team are dominant. Their team are excellent to watch. So I'm excited for that one. Also, the USA and Canada are facing each other this weekend as well. That's in Infinity Park in Glendale, Colorado. I think is that actually Monday, November 1st?
That's Monday. Yeah, it's a Monday game.
Right. Well, that means it won't be clashing.
I think it's a bank holiday in America.
Right.
Which makes sense because it's Halloween this weekend. In Ireland, it's not.
Yes, indeed, it should be a bank holiday, whatever. But it's also the first of a 2-game series as well, and just another good look at what is unlike when a few months ago we were previewing the US and Canada having their playoff match for Tier 2 rugby and for the World Cup chasing. No, this is another one that could potentially be the World Cup final too. These are 2 very serious sides facing each other as well.
Probably not the World Cup final, but it'll still be a good game. It'll be fun to see where those sides lie, and all those sides will be playing each other over the coming weeks, which is definitely an exciting thing for the women's game, which is too many one-sided matches, and it's nice to see the competitive teams at the top end of the game taking each other on. There is another bit of international rugby housekeeping we have to do, just that the America's Rugby Pacific Challenge has been getting a bit of media and is ongoing, and it's a Tier 2 of the Tier 2 countries. It's the A teams of Brazil, USA, Argentina, Paraguay, Chile and Uruguay taking each other on. And there's been some fun games so far. There was one match cancelled between Argentina 15 and USA Select 15. Although it doesn't look like it was much of a loss, given that the USA Select 15 did ship a loss to Brazil in their second game. One of the more standout results, Uruguay A beating Chile 24-17 is a fun one. But poor old Paraguay are having a time of it. They opened their account with a 62-0 defeat to Chile, and then backed that up with 146 points conceded to Argentina 15.
They scored 7 though.
They did.
146-7. So it wasn't like 146 points they lost by. They only lost by 139.
It's literally 42 points more than the All Blacks managed against the USA in that match, where they seemed to score on every phase. It's hard to even fathom how it's possible.
Can that be? Yeah, no, indeed. I didn't get to see how that transpired, but I can't imagine it was particularly pleasant viewing, other than just try.
But it's definitely it's another example of more good competitive rugby. Just so many rugby players getting good exposure to quality competition in South America. It's Montevideo again flying the flag.
This is Estadio Shirua Montevideo. Shout out to them there. It is a little mini mecca for rugby right now. Lots of really, really good games and lots of good opportunities for Tier 2 sides as well. And we haven't had this competition since 2018 actually. I don't know why, but Samoa
2019 there was the World Cup.
That was it.
Pandemic.
I guess that's what'll do it. But Samoa A won the last one. Obviously they're not available this time.
It's all South America.
The South Sea Island
and the US
teams are not available to field A teams, much less they rarely can field any teams in this current climate. But Argentina 15 usually dominant in these, and might be again now that we've ruled out some of these kind of South Sea Islanders who can occasionally challenge them. Hopefully Uruguay can give them a rattle as well. I'm curious to see how it plays out, but it's definitely good that World Rugby are doing these kinds of things to just, as you say, get a little...
American rugby, it's just on them. They're just doing a very good job right now, and it's definitely fun to see these good quality matches. There's just a lot of players getting good quality minutes, and Slar will come up in no time as well. So South America continues to hold.
The rising tide raises all boats. This is it.
Exactly right. Up and up. We're now going to just park international rugby for this week, and we're going to just wrap up with the club sides and the club competitions. The United Rugby Championship we're going to start with has been put on ice now. We've had 5 rounds. The week 5 just took place last week, and now the competition is parking itself for the November series, and it'll come back, and then from there it'll pick up, although there will be sort of breaks for European games as well. Absolutely. Just as far as how things stand, we're delighted to report that our own charges Leinster are top of the table, the only unbeaten side, 5-0 after 4 bonus point wins, 1 7-6 win in Uruguayan Dragons, which was a bit of a anomalous, lucky enough one, but they won that game nevertheless, and they probably did
better now that you see Dragons are actually showing good competence in other areas. But
they are somewhat. They had a good win in Connacht.
Not a great day for red zone efficiency, that one
though. No. Ulster and Munster were unbeaten going into last weekend. Both took losses. Munster took a bad loss away at Ospreys. Ulster got stuffed in the Aviva Stadium by Connacht. I don't know if
it was that bad loss. I enjoyed it.
Then Edinburgh, who have had a decent start, they had a loss to Benetton, but they've beaten Scarlets, they've beaten Zebra, they have one draw against the Stormers, and then they beat the Bulls as well. So Edinburgh have had a very fine start to the season. They're up in 4th. Ospreys 4-1 as well, so Ulster, Munster, Ospreys 4-1. Edinburgh ahead of Ospreys despite having a draw in their books because of the bonus points. Then there's still some solid sides. Glasgow 3-2, Cardiff pretty solid side 3-2. Even Benetton and Connacht at 2-3 are very, very competent sides. And then down towards the tail end of the table you have the South African sides who filled 12th to 15th, Stormers, who have been more competent than most. They all have 1 win, mercifully. Stormers have 1 win, 1 draw, 2 defeats. The rest of them are 1-3. But that was the toughest spot for these teams. That was the toughest run that they're going to have. They were without any of their internationals. It was all away from home. It was brand new to them. It was always going to be the toughest part of the calendar. And now things are going to flip a little bit once we get to the tail end of November, where all of a sudden these Springboks are going to come back in, and they're going to be the more rested side because they don't have European games. So they're going to have weeks off to prepare.
It's a new dynamic. Just the whole tournament is a new tournament, so we're kind of figuring out what the dynamics are. But as far as the SAFA sides, they were disappointing on week 1, but
they all got one win.
Now that you get the block done, they have a win in the books and they're within touching distance. So they're like with the way the league is going to work as well, isn't it? Like how many go through at the end of the top 8? So there's stuff to shoot for.
None of those sides either have played a home game yet. Exactly, which is going to be such a factor.
It's very determinative. Zebra, meanwhile, are propping up the bottom of the table below all the SAFA teams, and they probably
they've been very poor.
Very bad. Don't look good at all. But that's the URC in good state. I did enjoy Connacht getting their win in the Aviva Stadium over Ulster last week. That was a big spectacle.
Heck of a defensive effort. Poor old Billy Burns throwing 2 picks. They just there's definitely, I would say, in the URC, and maybe the Sharks will be the side to deliver on it, but there's no reason why any one of these middling sides couldn't be that team. There is a niche for a good blitz defence. Nobody blitzes in this league, and we saw it last year with the Scarlets against the Sharks, just being so bamboozled by a blitz defence. We saw it kind of in that Connacht game by Ulster. Connacht just brought huge energy off the line. It wasn't one of those sort of drift, mind your spacing kind of defences. It was all aggression, and it blew Ulster out of the water. They didn't know how to deal with it, and they threw 2 interceptions, and they weren't able to cope. They're some of these Pro 14 teams. I'm a Leinster fan. Obviously, I'm fine with our defense. It doesn't give up anything. It's a slightly different style. It gets a bit more aggressive when Henshaw comes into the side and can make good reads. But by and large, it's about spacing and being dominant.
It's about not committing to dead rucks and getting back on your feet quicker than the tackled man gets up and numbering up.
Exactly, but it's not really a line speed defence, and nobody in this league brings a line speed defence. It kind of baffles me. I mean, Munster might be the most, but they don't even bring a total blitz either. And so when sometimes when these sides come up against blitz defences, they don't know what to do. It's definitely an area where if I was the SAFA coaches, I'd be looking at, because I've seen a few times whenever a blitz defence is shown to some of these URC sides, they just get bamboozled. They don't know what to do.
It's true. There's definitely scope for that. I hope we will see new looks in the league as a result of the Safa sides coming in.
And it was Connacht who delivered it first.
Connacht, just a high energy kind of thing. They were wearing green in the Aviva. They were always going to be bullish for that one, and it was quite satisfying to see that one, and especially after the week before where they had seemingly been robbed by the Munster faithful in Thomond Park in a performance that should have yielded a win. They deserved the win, but I know Munster got their just desserts the week after in Oxford.
Reffed off the park.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I'm a huge Holly Davidson fan. I'm sure I'm not alone. Just when I thought I couldn't like her anymore, she was pinging Munster players for correct decisions for them being offside, which is just such a rare thing in this league. It's like, no, you were offside. It was great to see. They had nothing at the end as well. Like 2 long range speculators from Ben Healy, 3 really when you count the 60-meter drop goal, and it was like box kicks galore from Murray off the bench, and it's like, wait a minute, aren't you 8 points down with less than 8 minutes left?
Though from an Ireland point of view, it's a little worrying, to be honest, how impotent Munster looked in that game. But anyway, there are a couple of other European leagues to check in on. Top Tours is rumbling on.
Yes, and that's going to continue rumbling on throughout. There is no
there's a 3 week break in the middle of it coming up. The result of last week, it was all home field apart from one away win. Montpellier out in the U Arena. Awesome. The Springboks rocked up, and then the Racing didn't know what hit them.
Elton Yankees getting himself red carded for being on his phone in the crowd.
But all
and Trevor laughing, chuckling away behind him.
All of the Springbok fans came out all the Springbok fans, all of the Springboks became fans.
Yeah, and Reinach scoring a little try under advantage.
Exactly. Reinach come and then Pollard in off the bench. They just had the Montpellier got the Springbok juju for a week. They blew Racing away in their own arena, which doesn't happen in this league very often.
Yeah, well, they just arrived to a pitch that Racing don't quite arrive to a lot of time. I do have a little
your
long-term skepticism about well, it's not just Racing. It's not even.
Surely it's the best. It's the best midfield potentially in Europe if they get it right.
Yes.
It's Finn Russell, Fiku, Vakatawa.
Yeah, but also look at PSG, like Messi and all of these guys, and it's similar. Like, but are they going to be holding the sprint button, or are they going to be holding the jog button?
Yeah, that's true.
The eat the baguettes button, the drink the wine button, the business end of the season getting away from us button. That's my concern.
Yeah, and Montpellier, to their credit, look very good in their season.
They're one of the stories of the early season, because like normally Montpellier are big lumps and we very easily deal with them, but this season they're moving the pill very, very nicely.
Yeah. Well, Reinach and Garbisi is just a really good acquisition. It looks like Montpellier's board of management making good decisions.
They have Ratez on one of their wings as well. They've been acquiring good speed, so they have. So
it looks like they've identified some of their problems.
They do. They look like they're evolving in all the ways that I kind of hope that US side evolve as well. They're starting to apply not just power in the tight, but good speed and good ball running, and that was definitely the result of the weekend. Although Toulouse put another big emphatic statement in with a 41-0 victory over what is a competent cast side.
Toulouse looks scary good. They do. They're just rolling over everyone. It's crazy.
Steamrolling. What else happened? Stade Francais edged Lyon in a tight one. Bordeaux blew Perpignan away. Perpignan still struggling to live with the pace. Clermont got a very impressive home win actually for John O'Gibbs to sink his teeth into. The second half was all Clermont in that one, 42-20.
It was all home wins last week apart from that away win. And this week we have some good games as well. We've got I'm looking for some good games. Japers. Montpellier Lyon is a good game. Bordeaux Clermont is a good game.
Toulon Biarritz could be a good one,
Probably not.
Because Toulon are struggling a bit, and Biarritz have started pretty well.
Yeah, Biarritz are good at home. They're not good away. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I think the last three, Montpellier, Lyon, Bordeaux, Clermont and Racing Toulouse are fine games.
Racing Toulouse is definitely as box office as it comes in the U Arena with the French champions coming to town. And Racing coming off a loss, bit of pressure on them there.
Back-to-back home defeats, Beckons, if they don't get their act together. The Premiership also going on. A decent weekend of matches last week. Northampton blowing out Worcester to kick it off.
6-10. Pachunk, Worcester. Not really covered. They're also struggling with the pace of some of these sides out there at the minute, Worcester.
Saracens blew out Wasps ridiculously. They look awesome. Saracens, massive scores the last 2 weeks.
Harlequins pulling off some sexy plays again. They look very, very good.
Quins beating Bath, Leicester beating Sale, definitely a top 3 emerging. London Irish got a win away in Exeter.
That was the result of the weekend. That was crazy. That was their first win of the season, and it was in Sandy Park, and it was emphatic.
I'd say, just a slow story emerging about Exeter and Bristol this year, that they're falling a little away, and we're starting to see a top 3 emerging that's not including those sides, which is crazy.
It is true. They benefited from the absence of Sarries, and Exeter were
and the absence of Leicester in all but name.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's true too. But Exeter were salivating at the thought of punishing Sarries by sending them down. And as much as I like Baxter and I do like the Exeter fans and all this, I don't particularly love the way they play rugby. And the thing that is glaring to us on this podcast is Eddie Jones can get a load of credit for this, but England do not make that World Cup final if Sarries aren't playing the rugby they are under Mark McCall in that year. And that's exactly, they basically just took the Sarries offense and printed it onto them.
Sarries, from a smarts point of view, from an innovation point of view, from a coaching point of view, light years ahead of any other team in England, and have been for
and for the last year and a bit, we saw an England team that were more influenced by some of the Exeter influences and a bit more tight and a bit more defensive.
Well, they had to kind of craft their own identity a little more so than the easy sort of repackaging of the Sarries offense. And it was tougher for them. But England still have.
They still have depth to burn.
Now Sarries are back, and that blueprint is still there, and I think you'd be mad to write off the likes of Owen Farrell and Jamie George, who was left out of that England squad initially for no good reason. He's one of the best hookers in the world, and cemented it with another couple of tries on the weekend.
You were just bamboozled on the Lions tour as well.
I thought he should start every game. 100%. I think he's awesome. Then this week we have also some club footy in the Premiership. Gloucester Exeter kicks it off. That's going to be a fun game in Kingsholm. Then you've got Bath Wasps, London Irish against Bristol. Huge game for Bristol to try and get the season back on track. Northampton hosting Leicester.
That could be a good one. Northampton just scored 66 last week, and Leicester
are definitely what we want Dan Bigger to be doing on Saturday afternoon. Taking on Leicester instead of the All Blacks. Worcester then play Sale Sharks, and the Sunday game, Quins against Sarries. There's your box office.
That is box office. That is a good game for Sunday kickoff, 3:00 on that one. That'll be good to watch. The bye is for the Newcastle Falcons this week. They have a bit of a rest, but all things motoring on in the Premiership. It's a very interesting comp this year. It's great to see Leicester resurgent, because honestly they are one of the old school rugby powerhouses, and much like Toulouse being at sea for the best part of a decade, it's great to see them back. Rugby is better for them, and English rugby specifically is much better for having a strong Leicester Tigers in it, and it seems that we do this year. It's a funny thing, this year we're all worried about the English teams in Europe, but it seems like the best 2 English teams aren't playing in top tier Europe at the minute.
It's true. It's definitely true. It definitely looks that way.
We're gonna have Bath. Aren't Bath sitting bottom or close to bottom of the thing, and we have them in our group this year.
It's safe to say they're not as good as Saracens. Yes,
it's also safe to say that they're going to be chucking out a B team, because they're going to be focusing on Premiership stuff.
Although there is no relegation this year, they're going to a 14-team league from next year, so I think the ring fencing is arriving in the Premiership, which might mitigate some of that European foolhardiness that does go on.
Well, it was only Sarries really, going way back to Leicester before you could find a team that managed to fight the battle on both fronts as effectively as Sarries did.
And
Exeter did ultimately in that one year, but it was it's tough to see. I don't think anyone has done it like Sarries did, close to 3 in a row, and just fought that fight ongoing. Now we're seeing Exeter, and the year after or 2 years after, struggling in the Premiership again. It's a tough thing to it is a tough thing to sustain, and it is something I've always had sympathy with, is that if you're a team like Bath if this was a normal year and Bath are sitting bottom of the Premiership, we saw it with Newcastle a while ago, where they were had a bit of a run in Europe, but now they're going to be relegated for it because they keep losing in the Premiership. It's a tough thing to juggle.
It is, for sure. We're going to move on, so just look at the Rugby Europe Super Cup briefly. That's been ongoing, the fun little competition there between 8 teams. We have some little narratives breaking through. Poor old Brussels and Delta from the Netherlands and Belgium just seem like the whipping boys when they're not playing each other. They were eating huge scores at the hand of the Iberians from Spain and the Lusitanos from Portugal. But the interesting thing was Black Lion and Tel Aviv Heat kicked off their campaigns. Obviously the Georgian team Black Lion against the Israeli Tel Aviv Heat, and Black Lion opened it up with a 33-10 victory over the Heat, and both sides have since gone to Russia and won.
There you go.
And that was interesting because those Russian sides look competent and were the sides with a bit of history to them.
True.
And both sides again will inverse and play the other Russian team this week. This weekend, so Tel Aviv will go and play Lokomotiv Penza. Black Lion will play Onasai STM, which might be Tel Aviv just won there, so it looks like Tel Aviv Heat might be the second best team in this competition. Although to be fair, the Lusitanos look very good for Portugal.
We remain to see how they match up when they meet those Georgians. I'm curious about Portugal, Georgia.
Yeah, well, Tel Aviv is an interesting team. Israeli rugby, you don't hear too much about it. But they've acquired some decent level pro players, and they've entered the tournament at a decent standard and got a good win. Mm-hmm. But it does look like the Georgian side are going to be the big dogs.
They're trying it. Like it says Rugby Europe in the title there, then that means Georgia are probably going to be close to dominant in it. That's normally the way those Rugby Europe things go,
and it looks as though that is.
But good to see Tel Aviv Heat bringing some of that heat and bringing some fire to this competition. And it's just, again, my takeaway is it's a competition now. We have a history of results. We have a fixture list that are in the
there
books.
Were some decent crowds at it as well. Some decent club level size crowds, and it the thing about this competition is that it has to be self-sustaining. It doesn't matter what we think about it. It has to work on the ground in these countries, and that
has to
hopefully
it's happening. So just hope that keeps rolling on and gains a bit of momentum. But it's nice to have it in history books, and that is the first step. If you want to do a season 2, you have to have a season 1.
Correct. 100%. Listen, that kind of wraps up the club footy, and we're going to end the show as we do with all the rugby news of the week. There's a bit to talk about, but we'll get through it. The first thing is just that at long last, Rassie Erasmus will front up to a World Rugby hearing on October 30th and 31st.
Some operatic saga that's going on.
I love that it's already down as a 2-day hearing, because they usually put these things down as 1-day hearings, but there's no way.
No, they won't hear all the things he has to say.
The headline that was coming out off the back of a leak from World Rugby is that they will have to acknowledge that Rassie was correct in the vast majority of his criticism after the first test against the Lions. Apparently he pointed out 26 errors, and World Rugby will concede 23 of them were correct.
Yes. But will they concede that? What does that mean? You were right in your blah blah blah?
No, I mean, that's the funny thing. It's it doesn't really matter. I think what it looks like is that Rassie's defence is going to be, I didn't put it out to the public. I just sent it to a few people like Bill Beaumont and I don't know, a few at the referees, and I that's what he's saying. I think that's his story, and he's sticking to it. Except he opens the video with, "I will take all the heat for this coming out," and if anyone hasn't, he's addressing it to the public, so it just seems like a weird defense. But I really hope that they just park it. I mean, I think just move on is right. I mean, I don't think it's this crazy precedent they think it is. I don't particularly buy the sort of pearl clutching outrage at any criticism of referees that come out. No. I think Rassie has a point that the referee should have been more forthcoming after the test. It's not good enough to just not answer your phone.
True.
So I think
all of that is true. However, where I differ from Rassie somewhat is that I don't wear tinfoil hats, and I always think that stupidity is a much more likely solution than conspiracy.
I don't think Rassie's suggesting there was a conspiracy against his side.
There's a very much an anti-Buck. There's a subtext to it that it's and what? Just because we were Springboks, that's the chip that's on the shoulder that I'm nah.
You can always point out refereeing errors in the game. You can. Some of those ones were really pernickety, and you could have pointed out them on the other side as well.
At the NFL adage, there's a holding call on every play. There's a holding call on every play in rugby as well.
You want to take the microscope on tackle height from every Springbok tackle this year? You want to see how many you could turn into red cards? You could.
Yeah.
You could. You could go back into the game and find
off your feet, clean outs, all of that stuff.
You could probably find 6 more red cards and 20 more yellow cards to give to the Springboks if you went through all their games this year with a fine-tooth comb. It's kind of the nature of the game.
Yes, it is.
But I ultimately want to see a slap on the wrist punishment. If there's anything major comes out of this, any punishment to the Springboks that's significant,
anything that prohibits him from being on the touchline or anything, I would hate to see.
I have no issue with the Waterboy thing. As much as I think it's fun, it's what is your problem? Why is this a problem? The French coaches do it all the time. They go down on the touchline. Alex Sanderson in the Premiership, he's one of those coaches. He just doesn't like being in the box.
Yeah,
he starts the game there, but no, before long he's down down on the sideline giving out, and that's just, it's fine. I mean, what's your issue? I think you should be able to do either. I mean, there's benefits and disadvantages to both. There's benefits to having the bird's eye view, and there's benefits to
Toulouse do both, don't they? They have basically dual wheels. They have one guy on the touchline and one guy
and so it was with the Springboks when Enab are up top with the broad view and Razzie down motivating the boys. What is the issue with that?
None at all.
It's
just people. That's just where you get into social media spats, which was part of what this was. So that's more is the reason to just shove it under the rug and be done with it, for God's sake. Let the man have his rant. He was right. It's fine. Shake hands. Move on. Just have a ref. Tell them both to shake hands and get on with it.
Tell them not to do it again. And leave it at that.
Exactly.
Honestly, let's not go acting like this is a game-changing precedent. It's not.
No.
Then we have news from Major League Rugby. Man Nonu is returning to the US.
Yes.
He's going to return to the San Diego Legion, who he did play a season with before. Going to be fun to see him have a run out. Definitely good for the MLR.
I saw some highlights of him last season. He was doing some tidy work for them, sitting some guys down, getting the distribution going.
His return to Super Rugby didn't quite work out, and he's just a little old now. I mean, he's out of the game from an All Black point of view for 5 or 6 years.
This is it.
But that's no reason why he couldn't keep making bank, absolutely torturing teams at this low level.
Indeed, Matt Giddo is a testament to it. 38-year-old Matt Giddo. You may need to mind him for a season, but he'll do good work.
Yeah, I tell you, Gitz is definitely glad he didn't have to meet Nonu last year.
Yes, indeed. Nonu might have put a big ferocious shot in on him.
Like World Cup final flashbacks in this Major League Rugby game.
Yes, indeed.
But good to see some big names heading over to America, and hopefully it'll give some strength to that league. We do have news also that Mornay Stain has officially announced his retirement from Test Rugby. He informed the Springboks management that he wasn't going to be available for the Northern Tour, and that's him done.
He might reconsider in about 12 years' time, picking up the boots again for just one test, for just 10 minutes of one test, the third test.
Maybe. I mean, what a hero. To just rock up and ice the Lions Tour again is just awesome.
He'll always have that in his.
He's got absolute nerves of steel, and he's not the complete player, but he's just a fantastic weapon to have. And what an achievement to beat the Lions twice. Nobody will ever do it again.
No, I'm pretty sure nobody will ever do that. As the game's got more professional and more ferocious, it's a very impressive accomplishment. And a true modern legend of the game, Mornay Stain, we tip our cap to thee. And in other slightly more disappointing kind of retirement news,
disappointing? Well,
in terms of Hallam Amos is younger. I mean, disappointing from an age profile point of view.
It's up to him. Hallam Amos he's to retire from rugby. He's going to focus on his medical career.
That's right.
He's got his medical degree. A bit like
20, but he's only 27. You see,
that's
where I'm coming from. And that was disappointing too. I want to see Kenki Fukuoka doing really good work and scoring tries.
Where he's coming from, Hallam Amos, is he's a decade in the game now. He's literally been playing pro rugby for a decade since he was 17. He has completed his medical exams and decided the time's right for him. He obviously contributed to the Grand Slam winning side, that great 2019 winning side. He was in it. He was always a lovely player to watch. Great finisher,
very flowy, very Welsh kind of backline kind of style. Very flowy, good attacking instincts.
I think best of luck to him. I'm happy enough.
That's true.
It's tough when you want to make a career as a doctor. There aren't really many head starts you can take. You have to start kind of from the ground up. And the longer you stay in the pro game, the later you're going to be doing that. If the doctor route is the one you want to go down, so it makes all the sense to kickstart his career. And to be able to retire at 27, having had a decade of rugby behind you and such achievements, is pretty awesome. So I was going to go with the congratulations.
No, it is
Hallam
congratulations,
Hallam. The disappointing.
I was disappointed.
Dance for me.
No, I was pretty much. I was disappointed to see that he's coming into his prime physically now. And there's potential for him to light it up for Wales for a wee while. And I always get disappointed when people retire slightly young. That's just me. It was the same with Kenki Fukuoka. I wish them both well as doctors, but I'm still just like,
I'm a Kenki play.
Maybe one day I'll rock up into hospital in bad need of care in Wales somewhere, and it'll be Hallam who says,
and it'll get to you like you'll be in need of treatment in like 10 seconds. You need to cover 100 meters down the emergency room in 10 seconds.
There's only one man for it, the quickest doctor in the valleys.
Exactly right. Then also just some news from the Tonga Tour is that Toulon have axed their coach a month into the season,
struggling to start this season. It seems they've assembled a bit of a Frankenstein's monster though of a team from what
not Toulon.
No?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Oh, well, they still have their box to come back in. But I was looking at some.
I was only messing. I'm like, of course they have.
Yeah,
that's who they are.
But yeah, no, they seem to like they'll be a little. Their age profile is a little old for the game they're trying to play, and
it's all messy. It's just
weird.
not a well put together team. And even the acquisition of Colby is like, I just don't
know if it's going to work.
It'll be good for Colby financially, and that's about it. It's still much better to see him in the Toulouse jersey than it will be to see him in this struggling Toulon team.
Yeah.
And likewise, Etzebeth. It's just as good as he is, he's not going to make the requisite impact. But to be fair, they have taken action and ditched the coach.
Yeah.
And Irishman James Coughlin.
There you go.
Oh, Colin, I believe he liked his name pronounced. He is taking charge, so he's another Irish head coach in the top Couture now.
He's good luck to him
for the time being. Julian Dupuy, if you remember him, he's his assistant.
Yeah, very good scrum half in his time.
Absolutely,
for Leicester, actually, for one of the last great Leicester sides.
That's right. Yeah. He was a nasty fecker, but he was a lovely player.
Yeah.
Those two are taking charge at least for this month, and then I think they're going to try and get a new experienced head coach. But good in the interim to see an Irish head coach over there.
Yeah,
and maybe
hopefully you can whip some of those mercenaries into shape.
Maybe they take off, and all of a sudden James Coughlin's the next big thing as a manager. That'd be fun.
Would be great. Maybe it's potential. What they do need is some kind of motivator. They do need the fire lit under them to get charging through walls, but they probably need a little more than that. Just in terms of what they're trying to do on the field, they look a bit of a mess to my eye, having seen them play a few times this season.
There's a couple of bits as well, just from World Rugby. They have drawn up apparently a couple of 4 separate plans for a proposed Nations Championship following the 2023 World Cup. So this is obviously this multi-tiered competition that they had proposed a while back in 2019. This idea that it would synchronize the global calendar, and it's this old nugget again.
And like they have 4 different options, and none of them are the correct plan to just bring the Autumn Nations Cup back with other tiers.
The one thing that I will say is that it's starting to dawn on them that the easiest thing to do is to improve the June and November windows.
Yes.
And personally, if you ask me, I think the June window is pretty much fine.
Yeah.
I like the Northern Hemisphere sides touring in those countries. It's the last sort of old school test series that you get in the June windows, where it's one side against each other a few weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But the November window,
which we're in now,
improve, and as good as it's going to be over the next few weeks to see all these games, it'll be better to see them with a bit of structure and a bit more competitiveness.
Yes.
And that
if
is
Wales v the All Blacks was round 1 of Tier 1 of the Autumn Nations Cup, which included 4 teams or whatever.
Well, maybe it wouldn't be Wales.
Probably wouldn't.
Or maybe you'd give it to the Six Nations winner. Who knows?
Six Nations winner, Wales, but also South Africa and Australia are in there, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or South
It could
Africa
be
and England.
Six Nations winner, Rugby Championship winner, next 2 by ranking. That's Division 1. But also you could just do it by promotion relegation.
Yeah.
But to structure the November window would be a good way to inject life into the game and give competitive Tier 2 teams a match.
That was it, because then you'd have a chance to see Italy v Uruguay being Tier 4 of the Autumn Nations Cup for all the marbles.
Yeah, exactly. To go to Tier 3 next year.
And exactly. And face the likes of Argentina for the time. All of that would make a much better window out of the thing, and it wouldn't sync the global calendar. What are you talking about? That's such flat earther talk to me. It's just what are you talking about? We're in 2 different hemispheres. The sun's up when it's not. I just don't understand.
I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. It's just a logistic nightmare, and it just they just have never sold me on the benefits to it.
I don't know what problem they're trying to solve or how, but it's just I don't know what they're talking about really, and I don't think this is going to pay too many dividends. But you're right to say that they are slowly zeroing in on the problem.
Yeah, you're just hearing a few more unions and stuff talking about the 2 existing windows and maybe just improving them. And I definitely think ultimately they will land on that. Whether or not they land on our idea specifically, I don't think so, but they might land on something cool for the November window, which would be fun. And speaking of silly ideas, the proposed World 12s tournament. It had made news yesterday. Remember, I had a right rant about this when it came out.
Just because go back because of one of the previous podcasts.
What really triggered me was just some of the language they were using when they were describing the rules, just about how they were going to improve the game by making scrums not happen.
Yeah,
it was just garbage talk. Garbage talk from non-rugby people.
Yes.
But a source in World Rugby has deemed it dead in the water, according to the Telegraph.
No.
Apparently, yes. Apparently,
according to the Telegraph this week. Didn't we say that like a month ago?
Their ambitious plan to just park all of rugby and take its best players and chuck them into a bunch of makeshift franchises for a month and play this mad format. Actually not that feasible when it comes down to
it. Turns out of it. Yeah. Who could have seen that coming? What on earth does be happening in some of those boardroom meetings? What are they talking about? I don't know where these ideas come from.
Some guy with a bit of money behind him just comes up with something on a whim and thinks he's a genius and it gets to this level.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll ever see the light of day. Hopefully I'm right about that. Not that I wouldn't hate seeing some 12s format at some point. I just reject utterly the idea that it's a better version of the game to just ruin forward play.
Speaking as a forward, you're just going, what are you talking about?
It's not sevens, and you have sevens. Anyway, we had this conversation.
We did.
It's dead in the water.
A previous conversation, a previous podcast, probably around 4 or 5 podcasts ago. This rant was on. You can go and find it. If you want.
I can now just laugh smugly about it, even though this is only a source. I mean, they'll come out swinging. They're not raising the white flag yet, they're saying, and they've hired a new CEO, and they say the issue's around the timing. And it's like, the issue is around the timing. You can never do it at any time.
That's about right. Yeah. Sure.
But listen, that seems dead in the water. And anyway, we have a final point. Unfortunately, a terribly sad note to end on, but we thought, even though we're a few weeks removed, we'd make mention of Sean Wainui, just because that was such a terrible
bit of news. Terrible bit of news.
God, yeah.
Great young player, 25 years old. I didn't even realise he was that young, because he's been a part of that Chiefs team for a few years. I've watched him for a few years. He'd only just switched into centre and he was doing exciting things last season. It was tragic. Obviously, for those who don't know, he was involved in a car crash in Bay of Plenty area, kind of wrapped his car around a tree, poor guy. He was dead on site.
And we don't know the details of it. I don't know, there's all kinds of reporting going on about it, but it's just terribly it's just terribly gutting for him and his family, and just the whole rugby fandom and Chiefs fandom as well. Our hearts just go out to everyone who knew him.
True.
And geez, it just hit me like a blow as well, because it just really did. He was just a lovely player, and you just never expect just a young athlete in his prime to go like that. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. My age he was.
The same age as Daragh here. Way too young. So our sympathies and condolences with the Wainui family and with the Waikato kind of tree, the Waikato tribe and people, and it was tragic news, and it's way too soon, and a grievous loss of talent as well. So just our sympathies go out for Sean Wainui.
Unfortunately, that's a sad note to end on, but we thought we'd make mention of it.
Of course.
But listen, that does do us for today. We are all wrapped up, and we will be back again next week.
That's right.
So if you did enjoy the video, if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, please like. Be sure to subscribe as well if you haven't already. Share the video around as far and wide as you can possibly imagine. Share it to all the people in all the land.
Mainly rugby fans. Rugby fans would probably get a kick out of it.
People who aren't rugby fans.
Share it with tennis fans. Bamboozle. No.
Be sure to comment any thoughts you have on the show, any thoughts on where we can improve, any thoughts on the rugby. We want to hear it all. So let us know about down below, and until next week, we will park and see you for a rake load of games as the November series really kicks into gear. So look forward to seeing you in that one.
Alright, take care guys, bye. Right, you're up.
I'm always up. Overthrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad. That's the first time in a while we just both not even nudged it. Like, it's like what is it? 6 feet. It's like
we're out of practice. We'll be better next week.
It's not a hard throw.
No, it's not.
We suck.
No. Not strike. Scrum. We'll have to scrum now off camera.